No? Did y'all get in?
I'm in.
Chris has to let me know.
Oh, are you guys joining the actual?
Yeah,
Okay.
watch the chat. I'm gonna watch all the
I
bombs.
can't.
I'm gonna watch all the bombs.
I can't focus on what people are saying.
No, and we should necessarily.
I'm gonna start writing chats
Did you
in
use
right
the-
now.
this-
Where's the link? Is it on the website?
Passcode?
It's on the K-12 website, and it's also the board docs.
Got it.
So you have to copy and paste.
Oh. There's 2 passcodes. I was using the wrong one. There we go.
Got it.
Oh, no. Really?
So wait, we should not join with video, right? Or wait, no, we should.
You can.
Just not
No.
our own, because that would be
Turn it
confusing.
off if you want.
I'm having a hard time with the passcode.
You have to enter?
Well, I can't just do the,
And Chris, we're supposed to be, oh,
Right now.
that's Darren.
So can't you just do join
That's,
by,
I can't.
join by phone and
That's
not
an
do it?
instruction, Darren.
They were not getting in there?
I'm having a hard time doing,
Hi,
I'm not
Linda.
getting in,
She
but
can't hear me. Oh,
Okay,
can she
I
hear
see
me? Yes, she can
everybody.
hear me. Hi, Linda.
Says they can hear us all.
And we're gonna hear them through the speaker then,
Oh.
so.
Yeah.
And there's Tara. Hi, Tara. She was a rock star on the task force and still is on the task force. Jen Livingston is a rock star on the task force. Hoo-ah. Total rock stars.
Did you write down the passcode by any chance before you?
I
I
have,
don't have to enter the password. That's weird.
I know.
I don't
You just copy
usually.
and
This
You
is
just
the first
copy
time
and
I've
paste the
had to.
link in it, you don't have to do anything.
it's one U, right? One U, O-B-M-R.
Yeah, it's not letting me do
Is
that.
a zero or
I
a?
think it is. I'll try that.
Let's try just the link again.
Let me know.
Okay, if I can't get in the next try, I'm gonna just
Yeah, usually
start the
we
meeting
can
and
just
not worry.
click on the HTTP zone line. Go Dwayne, that worked.
Oh, here we
Did it
go.
work?
You're crazy.
Good, excellent.
Sorry.
Turn on.
All right.
Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn from time to time.
Okay, so I'm muted and,
When you get really tricky, you can hit the window button and either directional window, and it'll split your screen.
Oh.
Hit what?
The window button and a directional arrow, and it'll split your screen for you if you look at 2 windows and look at the same.
It won't work if you have a map.
I won't, I might have to play with that another
Oh, and then you
time.
can see it small. Oh, that's a great idea, but you can barely see anybody then.
All right,
Observe the chat, for example, you could,
Window. Click and hold window and then arrow.
Oh, yeah, cool. Hey,
kind of a cool little feature. I found that out during COVID.
during COVID. We've all learned a lot of things during COVID. All right, are we ready to start, do we think, or is Dave on?
yes.
Okay, it is 5:05 and I will call the meeting to order. Eliza, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Kate First,
Present.
Jonathan Nichols,
Here.
Susan Roll,
Here.
Dwayne Romero,
Here,
and Susie Simmons.
Here. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call for Kate Frisch.
Here.
Aye.
Oh, aye, sorry.
Jonathan Nichols,
Hi.
Do that.
Susan Roll,
Aye.
Dwayne Romero,
aye.
and Susie Simmons.
It's the problem with being first in the role.
Catches you by surprise. All right, so I just wanted to start out and just kind of give our meeting a little theme. I just want us to remember that we're all really working towards the same thing, that we want what's best for our kids and our staff and our community. And we just want to discuss and work together with kindness and empathy toward everyone. And so just asking everyone to keep that in mind as we have our conversations. The chat feature is available online, and we would just ask that you use that constructively, kindly, collaboratively. And if you'd use your name, then we can get back to you with questions or answers to questions or any of that. So that would really be helpful. I think that we all can work together. We all care about each other, and we should just make sure that we're showing that when we're all discussing. Okay, so our first agenda item is 4.1, our return to learning plan. Hi, Dave.
Thank you, Susan. Are we gonna put that up on the screen? I sort of thought we have Karen Kenneman here from Picken County Health, and Joshua Vance, I believe, is going to be joining us. And in the PowerPoint, we kind of go through and we show how we align our learning models to kind of what's going on in the county. And I was kind of hoping, if it's okay with Karen and Josh, if they could jump in and kind of give a more thorough explanation of what's called the COVID meter, or the corona meter, sorry. And, at that point in the presentation. So, Eliza, do you want to put it up on the screen? Oh, and I do want to thank Task Force B. They came together really fast. They worked incredibly hard, made a commitment every day, multiple hours every day, and we went through it. And we have some members of the task force joining us tonight to do different presentations, different aspects of the presentation. So,
We're working on it.
technology is fantastic until it isn't.
We got a lot of screens going on in the corner,
Yeah.
so.
I could just reiterate that
Multiple members of that task force come together and went through a set of agreements, and every day we got closer and closer to, I think, what was a representation of a plan that worked for all of us in a lot of different ways. And I just want to again thank that group for coming together and bringing their best thinking and putting in a lot of time. I'm telling you, 2 hours a day every day is not easy to commit to.
Yeah.
And to have everybody do that, especially with all the things that are cycling around out there, world events, was absolutely amazing. So again, yeah, big thank you to everybody that was working on the plan. Their help was absolutely needed, and I think they asked some questions that made a better plan overall. So it was great.
Yeah, it was a diverse group of folks. We had some parents and, of course, teachers, and we had some Picken County Health Department representation, board member representation, principals and assistant principals. The original goal of a small task force quickly fell by the wayside. It got a lot larger pretty quickly, but we were able to put together some really good stuff. We believe. And the other thing to mention while we're waiting is that this is the first steps. And we're continuing to monitor the situation closely. We're continuing to work closely with Picken County Health. They've been a huge help and gave us some great suggestions today that we thought was implied or baked in, but wasn't quite explicit. So we're working to make that clearer. We're doing a number of different steps to kind of work our way through it. All right, looks like something's happening.
Pressure.
There it is.
Yay.
Oh, and now we go to presentation mode,
Yep.
which is, there we go, up top, full screen. Did that work?
Well, it's definitely bigger.
How about the pull down again, might be present,
All right. So,
present,
Yes.
first one,
There you go.
bingo.
all right. So, as we said, we had quite a few people coming together and work on this since August 5th. We've been continuing to refine it. And the wonderful thing was we at least had a place to start back in August 5th. The current proposal meets and exceeds the guidelines from CDE and CDC in many, many, many respects. Teacher and parent voice was huge. We actually sent it to the Pitkin County Department of Health on August 14th, and they worked on it over the weekend. So again, I want to thank them for that, and we really appreciate that. So kind of the 30,000 foot view where we are now. So remote learning begins for Aspen High School and Middle School August 26th with what's called a soft start. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Active online schooling for secondary begins August 31st. And this is what's going to feel a lot more like regular schooling. So one of the things we heard from the spring was that it didn't feel a lot like school. And that was hard for a lot of our kids. So begins in earnest August 31st. Aspen Elementary delays in person until September 8th with onboarding and orientation the week of August 31st. Aspen Elementary School embraces small cohorts. And by now most people have heard about the A day, remote day, B day. And Mr. Bastian will be talking more about that when we get to the elementary school. Preschool begins August 19th for in-person learning. And Task Force B is going to stay together to work on return to in-person learning for all. And I want to say that right up front, this is the first of what could wind up being a number of different plans. But, Task Force B, really thoughtful, they push hard and ask really great questions. And so I'm hoping Task Force B will stay together to continue to work on what looks to be a very volatile year. So one of the things that we're going to ask everybody to do, and staff have been doing this all through the summer, self-checks for symptoms prior to arrival at school for staff and students. And should I go to school today is a link to a checklist, which is really pretty good. Pitkin County Health gave us some more guidance, and we have a whole list of resources in a page in the plan called resources. So, we're really looking at kind of the basics of managing COVID, maintaining a safe distance. That's part of the reason the elementary school felt like they had to split their cohorts in two. Constant hand washing or sanitizing throughout the day. Mr. Calderon's ordered over 24 foot-driven hand sanitizers, which are going to be placed in common areas. Constant use of face masks. It's hard, it takes some getting used to, but one of the things we learned from talking with people who did this work over the summer is that the kids adapt. They figure it out. They do need reminding, and it's kind of like walking in the hall. We just have to keep reminding them. We're looking at cohorts of about 10 students, and we're looking to minimize large gatherings of staff and students. So we definitely need help from parents with that. So we're going to continue to use video conferencing when possible, use of outdoor learning space when and while weather permits. Meals and classrooms are outdoors. And again, Mr. Calderon has developed an aggressive sanitation schedule. Bathrooms 2 times a day, each classroom 2 times per day. Physical barriers for staff in need. And Ms. Maafi has been working on transportation changes, dedicated entrances, and she's partnering with the elementary schools to finalize those details. And that's it for that slide. So some of our teachers initiated the outdoor learning spaces movement, which is fantastic. The district has purchased a number of large, fairly substantial tents, about 10, I believe. The district has also purchased numerous items for sanitization, sprayers, misters, that sort of thing. And as I mentioned, at least 2 times per day. Thousands and thousands of PPE for staff and students acquired. We're continuing to work on air handling at Aspen Elementary School. It's been kind of an up and down journey, but it turns out last year, some of the air handlers got shut down because they weren't heating air and they never got turned back on. So we turned them on. It was working great. We noticed a funky smell over the weekend. We've reached out to professionals to come in and evaluate the air situation at Aspen Elementary School. Regrettably, because of the fire, they're having trouble getting here. So Mr. Calderon is staying on top of that. Like we said, the split cohort model for elementary students begins September 8th. We have acquired signage and pedestrian guidance acquired and being installed. Secondary begins remotely, and kind of neat, because secondary is starting remotely, Aspen Elementary decided to sort of massage the kids out over the whole campus. So I believe 4th grade is going to the high school and 3rd grade is going to the middle school, and they have dedicated classroom space. So we're very appreciative of the team working on that. So we have, I forgot the E in CDPHE. Multi-week model established to support current teaching and learning models. The district does have plans for quarantining and isolation, and it will evolve as we figure out where the kiddos are. You can review it at this site. And we received more guidance from Pickens County Health, which was just terrific. They have some great graphics. So the individual schools, the way Task Force B worked was that the leadership teams at each school kind of informed the district leadership team. One of the things we realized early on was that we're going to have to figure out a way to parse out the individuals with COVID sort of symptoms versus normal healthcare issues. You know, in an elementary school, there's a huge demand for Band-Aids a lot of the time. So we want to make sure that, you know, it's kind of one goes, you know, straight ahead and the other one goes to the right. But that'll be worked out based on where the kids are. Isolation locations are an integral part of the master plan, and parental cooperation is essential. Checking your child's health before coming to school to protect the cohort is imperative, because according to guidance, if, you know, one kiddo or one teacher is manifesting symptoms, we could shut that cohort down. And if enough cohorts shut down, we'll have to shut down the school. And we don't want to do that. So we're taking all these steps, and, you know, we just really want to make sure. In the past, you know, sometimes kiddos would turn up and they might not be feeling that well. But in these days, you know, these are the days where we need to keep our kiddos home, as well as our staff. If you're not feeling well, you need to stay home. So these are our 3 learning models. They're kind of based on the state model. You know, we're currently in the sort of medium risk level, the safer at home. Got a little excited typing. But, you know, we hope to eventually be in the protect our neighbors, which could increase learning opportunities on campus for us. And one of the things we really want to do is work together as a community to stay out of the stay at home, which is the highest risk level. Now, the next slide is going to allow us to talk with our Pickens County health friends to talk about the coronameter. And this is fascinating stuff. So Josh, are you on here?
Yeah, I am. If we can unshare the screen so that I can share mine, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so like Dave said, I'm Josh Vance. I'm the epidemiologist here with Pickens County. The chronometer here may not look like too much, but actually took several weeks for us to put together. We put a lot of thought into it and wanted to make sure that this tool could be used appropriately, but also that it would be useful to those who are looking at it. And so essentially what the chronometer does is it gives the community an indication about where we're at and how we're feeling, at least from the health department, and where we think our community is at in regards to transmission in our county. So you'll notice here, the chronometer's got 4 different levels to it. We have a comfortable level, a cautious level, a concern level, and a very high risk level. Within each level, there's 3 different slots, if you will, that the needle can go into. So there's 12 different slots where we could end up putting that needle. And there's 10 different measures that we use to determine where that needle should go, which I'll talk about in a second. I do want to mention that right now our needle's here in the cautious sector on the verge of concerned. And right here we have a note that as of August 14th, there have been no new cases reported in Pickens County over the past 7 days. We're happy to report that we haven't had any cases reported in the last 10 days at this point. So we've seen transmission start to reduce a bit. We know that cases will increase again, but right now we have had a period of time where we have not seen any new cases reported in Pickens County residents for the last 10 days. So again, so this chronometer here, as I said, there's 10 different measures that go into it. If you scroll down, and this is on our main website here, our dashboards here, chronometers here, so you can check out our different stats that we have here. But as you scroll down, we have 3 different sections here, and we use all 10 of these indicators to determine, as I mentioned, where the needle will go. So the first thing we look at is disease spread. And within disease spread, we have 4 different indicators. The first one is how many cases we've seen in the last 14-day period. Within each indicator, we have 4 different levels. So when it comes to number of cases in a 14-day period, right now we're in the concerned area because in the past 14 days, we've had 11 to 15 cases reported. So that's one indicator. That's a pretty important indicator that we look at. Next thing we look at is percent of out of jurisdiction cases. So this is the amount of individuals that have come here from a different place in the country. Either they're visiting or they don't live here, but they were tested positive here in Pickens County. This is important for us to keep an eye on, because it lets us know what percent of cases we're seeing that are travel associated or come from people that are out of our jurisdiction. Community spread, this indicator here, it targets the number of individuals who don't know how they were infected. So when we interview them, these individuals indicate to us that they were not near anyone that was sick. And so this indicator, we want to be as small as possible. Right now, it's 25 to 50%. I think it's right around 35% that we're seeing right now. In the past 14 days, do not know where they were infected at. So that, to us, that tells us that we have cases that we may not know about, right? These people were infected by someone who was sick, but they did not make that known to the person that they were around, or somebody was infected by someone that was asymptomatic. So we keep a pretty close eye on community spread, and we also monitor our neighbors. We try to see how many cases Garfield and Eagle are reporting in the past 14 days, and right now they're still at very high. Our hospital system capacity is another piece that goes into the chronometer. They have a few different indicators that we combine all into one. And right now they are reporting that they are comfortable with the hospital. And then the last piece that goes into the chronometer is disease control. So this is our contact tracing unit and disease investigation. We have 5 different metrics that we look at here. We look at our positivity rate. That's the percent of people who get a PCR test or a COVID test who come back positive. So right now, between 5 and 9% of individuals in Pickens County are testing positive when they get a COVID test. We want this to be down in the 0 to 4% range. Right now, we're at 5 to 9%. And then we also look at what percent of individuals we're able to contact trace within a reasonable amount of time. And so far, we're at 100% for both of these indicators. Within the same day that we receive a report of someone who is sick or who has been exposed, we are able to contact those individuals and inform them. And then these last 2 metrics are just looking at the amount of time, it's our turnaround times, the amount of time it takes for 2 events to occur. So the first one here is how long does it take for someone who develops symptoms to go get a test? And right now it's about 3.5 days. So if someone develops a fever, it takes them about 3.5 days until they go and actually get a COVID-19 test. We want that to be below 3 if possible, because that helps us from the contact tracing endpoint to make sure that we are following up with individuals as soon as possible. And then the last part is how long does it take to actually get a test result back after the specimen's already been sent to the lab? And right now it's right about 3. We would like that to be within 24 to 48 hours. Right now it's taking about 72 hours on average for us to get those results back. So those are the 10 indicators. All of those get weighted and they get combined to determine where we sit with the chronometer. And as I mentioned, as of last Friday, we were sitting right here. We are planning on reviewing that every week. So at the end of this week on Friday, we will be reviewing our current metrics and determining if the needle needs to shift to a different location. So that'll happen every Friday, and is something that the community can look at to get an idea of where we're at in terms of cases.
Thank you, Josh. That's hugely impactful as we think about either, more kids coming back to our campus or possibly eventually having to restrict campus further. One of the neat things about the 4 tiers in our conversation with Pickens County Health was they emphasized sort of the importance of schooling and how if things start to shift up as a county, we can tighten our belt in other places to make sure that schools can continue to educate children. Am I saying that correctly, Karen, Josh? So that was kind of neat that, they developed that. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. And what we really want to express to the community is what are the sacrifices that our community needs to make in order for schools to have the best learning model that they want to have, and that there are many things that we can think about at the community level that are really important to consider when we think about where we can have different kinds of restrictions and allow schools to flourish in the models that they want to have. So we really believe that it takes a community effort to allow for the data that Josh just shared to be in the place that we all want it to be so that schools can function in the best learning environments for kids.
Great, thank you. We really appreciate you guys being here tonight, so thank you very much. All right, Eliza, shall we jump back into the presentation? And I believe Mr. Mulberry is going to take over.
Questions maybe that I would like to ask. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Of the health special. Can you hear us, Dave? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So on the testing ones, and I've now had one of my kids get 2 COVID tests and both negative, fortunately. So the testing thing here, I wanted to understand how we can get these 2 into the comfortable range, like having people go quicker and then also getting the results. Can you, because that's kind of outside of what we've been able to study. And if it's going to be impacting decisions we make, is there anything we can do or push? It is not that easy to get a test at the beginning sometimes. It was a little easier the last time around, but still, you got to get your doctor, you got to go to the emergency room, there's kind of all these hurdles. How do we get more information, or can we do something to help get more information out to people? And maybe here at the school specifically, if we can communicate, use it as a channel to help with it. We should send an email.
Well, Karen and I had talked sort of briefly about this, about ramping up education efforts. And that's part of the reason we're constantly stressing, the 5 commitments and parental engagement and how it really takes sort of a community. But I'd love to work with, Karen and her team around, a whole sort of Pickens County education initiative around COVID-19.
Yeah, and I think I caught a little bit of that. So we are We have a epidemiologist that's crafting a testing strategy for Pickens County. He'll have a draft to us by Wednesday, and the testing landscape is really dynamic. And we see that there are a lot of new tests that are coming on the market. There's a further, it's been a priority of Governor Polis, so we're seeing a lot of kind of innovative ways of maybe looking at testing across the state of Colorado, and hyper focus on the West Slope. There's been an acknowledgement that a lot of resources have been put into the Front Range, but not so much in the Western Slope. So those conversations are happening. So I just want you all to be aware that we'll have a testing strategy we can share. And we're looking at how do we prioritize, again, schools, employees of the school district, as well as kiddos in that testing strategy, recognizing that, again, we want to get people tested quickly. We want to get people into isolation and quarantine quickly so that we don't have to have kids out of school with their cohorts for a long period of time. So we recognize that, again, schools are a priority for us in all of our strategies.
Okay, well, I guess, Dave, maybe just my recommendation, it's definitely the one about number of days we could probably help impact just by communicating better to the community. So I would stress that. I mean, if this is kind of going to be one of those measures that we're going to use to say how we're doing, let's make sure we're trying to impact them through our school community as well in a positive way. That's it. That's my only comment.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, it's all, we can't look at ourselves apart from the community. And so the things that we do will impact what the community, you know, numbers look like, and the community numbers will influence what we do. So I think, you know, it's really great to have you here, Karen and Josh, and this is an important part of the conversation for sure.
And just one other question. So safe to say, based on the information we have today, the meter would look better this coming Friday? Unless something.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we're anticipating that the meter is going to move in the, which direction, in the more positive direction. So as Josh mentioned, each color has 3 different spaces where it can land. So it can be in the middle, or it can be closer to the orange or closer to the blue. And right now we're anticipating, yes, the meter will be moving into the positive direction. We don't know if it'll be smack dab in the middle of yellow or if it'll be even closer to the blue, but it is moving in the positive direction from the data that we have. And we're seeing that same trend in Eagle and Garfield and across the state. We're seeing a lot of movement in the right direction. So that's very comforting. I think also we always want to mention it's not the time to take our foot off the gas, right? So we want to keep vigilance and commitment to the 5 commitments to containment, because that's going to, again, really make an indicator on how successful schools will be in the next month or so.
So I have one question about the Eagle Garfield numbers. Is that all of Eagle County, or is that the Eagle County that's in our valley? Is there any way to break that to only look at what's really in our community opposed to the rest of Eagle County?
Great question. Right now, it is all encompassing. Their community spread is across the Eagle River Valley and Roaring Fork. We are having those conversations if we can dice it out, just so that it is for the Roaring Fork Valley and have some more locally specific data, but we haven't been able to work through that yet, but it's part of our EPI conversation this week.
So the plan is to change it so it's just Eagle and in our valley eventually, but you're not there yet with Eagle County. Got it.
You got it.
Thanks.
Yep.
I actually have one question, just in looking at our plan and the way that the plan has the state risk factors and some criteria for what we would do in each of those phases. Do we have something similar for the corona meter? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of.
I don't know what you mean.
When I read this as being the safe
Well,
or the
so
softest, the middle 2, kind of the middle zone, and then the red one.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's the case. I'd like
Okay.
something more specific about what we do when we're in each of these phases of the coronameter, like we have
Okay.
for the state.
So that would be a question, right?
Like a question for you and Dave, really, or
That's, okay, we're not taking them anymore to camp. Why do we need to bring them to camp? So they're begging you for them, and then what happened?
So if you go up one slide, Eliza, if you go up to slide 8, you see that it kind of correlates across the state level. And so
Right.
if you think of blue in Pickens County as being green across the state and yellow as being the yellow/orange in
okay,
Pickens County, that's kind of the guidance that we pulled out of CDC and CDE.
okay.
And that's kind of how that works.
So it's yellow and orange in the middle. Got
Yes. Yeah. Which is the plan that is coming out this evening.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to go back one more? There we go. I think one of the things that Dave wanted me to talk about a little bit was when we went to our team, we had multiple needs start to arise. We need help in probably some of the following areas. We're looking to have support with staff, with learning camps, maybe have community volunteers to help man and staff some of the learning camps that we have, or some of those folks that need support, both staff students and community students that would need support and wouldn't be able to be at home during the online learning portions. In addition, just any help we can have with substitute teaching and with our paraprofessional positions that we're having a hard time filling at this point for those individual supports for our teachers. So please know that we're doing an all call for the community to be on deck. And I think that's just something that we've been talking about at length here. And, just to get back into somewhat of a Churchillian sort of look at this, we need to talk about this is one of those times when we as a community need to band together. I think that one of the things I was so impressed by our task force is we decided to say, hey, instead of looking at ways to plan and work, what are some of the ways we can short up? And this is one of those things that we talked about that we can use to overcome some of the challenges that we're facing as a community going forward. So I just would like to put out this to the community as well. How well we follow this plan as a group is going to be very important, or as a city and as a municipality, in order for us to keep the schools open. That means people honoring the 5 commitments at home, making sure they do a great job doing self-screening at home with their students, coming to pick up students, getting testing done in a timely fashion. All those things will lend themselves to making sure that we can keep the schools open. We think it became very clear to us as we went through this process, we're such a vital link to the health of this overall community that keeping the schools open should be a high priority for all of our community. Again, I just know that we will talk about the next level of this. On August 31st, we'll start looking at and reviewing if we're going to change the designation of the plan based on where we are with the health in the community. I want to just stop and talk just for a moment and give a big recognition to my outdoor team that worked on this. I had a few teachers that helped with this. I want to give some real congratulations to Beth Willie, Tana Rinaldi, Jill Pisani, Dana Barrow, Catherine Gleason, Brett Maiello, and multiple teachers that went in and created a whole outdoor plan for the community as well. We brought up multiple outdoor areas where students can be a part of that. We created outdoor bathroom areas, hand wash areas, and shaded areas where students do it. It can be checked out during the day. We'll be able to handle and have safety protocols outside for the students. We involve law enforcement in a lot of those conversations about how to keep students safe. In fact, I just left a meeting 20 minutes prior to this one about shutting down the community bike path through the campus, and we are making progress in getting that done. So just know that there's a lot of considerations to make this a safe outdoor environment for the students. And I know, I think I saw a comment in chat, as soon as we get all that work done for the outdoor classrooms, the air quality drops to zero out there from the fire. So we're hoping to see that improve dramatically before the 8th, before we get to the in-person learning. But again, none of that outdoor work couldn't have happened without the incredible experience we had from our outdoor team that put that together.
All right. Can I ask a question about the substitute teachers? Can we somehow make it easy for the community to find the link, put it front and center of our website, email it out to the parent, whatever we need to do?
I think that's a great idea, and we'll make sure that happens. Just make sure that that's a community ask.
Yes.
That they have access to it.
And the other ask is, I understand everyone who becomes a teacher, a substitute teacher needs to be fingerprinted. So I think it would be awesome if we could get either the sheriff's department or the city police to set up some appointments, someplace easy for everyone on campus to come in. I think we need to help coordinate that.
Right.
So people can get through the process quickly, as well as making sure, I know it needs to go to the state. I think we need to talk to the state about making that process easy and perhaps batching them together, whatever we can do so that we get it all together easily and we can get it done by the 8th.
Great idea, because I think what's going to happen as we go through this, there will be a need for people to either, leave the classroom for the normal reasons that we see, and then we have all the reasons around COVID and quarantine that would be possibilities of removing teachers out there and having the need for a substitute. So having that kind of prepared for is a great idea. And also what we about that, I think that's great.
I would even make it take it one step farther, Darren, and actually make up our own step by step. Because if you go, I went to the link, and then you got to go. The link says this is what you got to do, and then you got to go find the people who will fingerprint you, and then you got to find out where those guys are.
We could
If
streamline
just
that.
say, here's what you need to do. if you
Yeah,
wanna help
and
with
we'll help
Take
them.
charge of the process.
this.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you. I think those are wonderful recommendations. We definitely move forward. So.
I just have one other comment before we get away from, working together with the community. I know Josh had provided some information about kids and COVID and I just think it would be nice if it's in the resources, I believe, in this plan, right, Eliza? But I think we should have maybe something on our website that has the latest, like a link or just the latest information from the community, from, Picken County and Picken County Health and whatnot, so that's really easy to find. And it was really good information, and we certainly appreciated that. So an easy way for people to find that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, it's easy to find on the Pickens County website, but they should be able to see it on their school website.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this was specific, to our school really. So I think that was nice to have.
And we definitely do a good job. I think that's what we do. So we will make sure that we start looking at all those ways that could happen. So we're getting to the portion of the meeting. I think the next slide is going to be presented by our elementary school principal, Mr. Chris Bastian. I just want to say a couple of things about Mr. Bastian. He has been working tirelessly along with his leadership team, his SWIFT team. They are meeting daily and hourly to figure out how to navigate this opening safely. And I know that when we're talking about schools, he definitely has a big lift. It'll be the first school to open in person. He is thinking outside the box, from having classrooms at other schools to the outdoor classroom areas, which was another one of his initial ideas to get started with the outdoor team. He's just done a great job. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let us know all the work that your team has been doing.
Will do, Theron. Thank you for your kind words. When we were shut down in March, it became clear to me quickly the enormous burden that had been placed on our community. As a teaching community, we really scrambled to develop online programming that was engaging for our children. Parents struggled to find a balance between parenting, teaching, while also trying to earn a living. I couldn't be prouder of the faculty for developing engaging lessons for our children while also attending to their own families and loved ones in a global pandemic. As a group with high expectations for ourselves, We're determined and focused on building a better online presence for our students and families. Since June, Sarah and I have designed a dozen plans on how to get our children safely back in the school while never compromising the safety of the kids and our beloved teaching staff and support personnel. The pandemic has shifted everything. This plan requires sacrifice and flexible thinking. The 2020-2021 school year may require us to teach differently. We may not be able to teach what we have taught, when we have taught it, or even where we have taught it. But the pandemic has also yielded some positive things. A reimagining of our practices and some extraordinary teacher leadership. With me tonight presenting is Miss Jen Liddington, who, in addition to being a teacher leader in our building, is also the mother of an incoming 4th grader. And also presenting with me is Miss Sarah Lowe, whose wisdom as an educator and parent can't be overstated. So the last few weeks, it became abundantly clear to us that we could not have 615 plus people on this campus at one time safely. So it's not an option. We've been preparing and working on a multitude of plans to try to get in-person learning up and running safely on September 8th, and that's what we continue to do. We'll be teaching in cohorts in Ben, with the thinking being that if we took our self-contained classrooms, kept them contained throughout the day with very minimal interaction from other teachers, in cohorts of 10 where we could socially distance, spread ourselves out over the campus so that our pods, which typically, or our cores, excuse me, which typically have about 100 children in them, under our plan we'll have about 30, 10 in each classroom, 3 classrooms per core. So there's a lot of details to be shared with you. I'm fortunate to have Miss Jen Liddington with us tonight, who is going to step us through some of those details.
Hi, guys. So thanks for this opportunity. I know most of you board members pretty well, having been in the district for so long. And I was really excited to be part of this task force, both in my school and as part of the district task force. The first thing I'm going to talk about is that AARBB plan. We came to this conclusion because we really feel like it's the best and most beneficial to the students and staff. We looked at several other models and there just seemed to be a lot of issues with them. Just lack of consistency, lack of frequency for students, too much time spent away from the classroom between days. And we decided that this AARBB for consistency and for frequency matters really is going to be what's best for kids. So the kids will have 2 days per week in school. They'll get to see the friends and teachers every week. The schedule will also really help the teachers. If we did some sort of week on, week off plan, the teachers would get no planning. We are going to be with these kids every day, all day. And so if we had a full week with one cohort, we'd switch around to the next week with another full cohort, and we'd have no time to plan, no time to do anything. And no time to create really great, amazing lessons for your kids. And so with this plan, you'll have an A cohort that will come Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday is the R, which is remote learning day. And on those days, kids will, all kids, we hope, will have a morning meeting with their teacher, so they still have that connection. And then possibly office hours for the teacher to help kids one-on-one or in small groups with anything they're working on at home. And then we'll use the rest of the day for collaboration and planning for the rest of the week or for the next weeks to come. This is also a great day to have a deep clean on Wednesday so that it's ready for the next group that's coming in on the Thursday, Friday. As far as cohorts go, we've been working really hard on that. We've split every class into 2 different groups, and each cohort is between 9 to 11 students. And this will ensure that exposure to teachers and students is as low as it can be. The class will be split into 2 groups, and we'll be keeping siblings together so they're on the same day, making that hopefully easier for parents. We're also, as Chris mentioned, using all the space on campus, which is just so awesome, and we're so thankful to the high school and middle school for being so flexible and allowing us to do this, because I know my 4th graders are super stoked to go to the high school. And so we've worked really hard with K2 being the elementary school, 2 to 3 classes per core, like Chris mentioned, which is going to cause some of us to have to move, but I think we're willing to do it to make this work. 3rd grade will be in the middle school with their own entrance and their own planning. In and out ways, they'll all be kind of in the same area, but separated. And then 4th grade is going to be up in the high school, also with their own entrance and exit in a similar area together. And then, you know, separated as well. And then, as Chris mentioned, all those amazing outdoor classrooms that we get to use, and that a lot of us are excited to use while we have this nice weather once the smoke clears. I know some people are curious about what will kids do on the 3 days that they are home. We have lots of ideas and plans at work. We're going to make it, we really want to make it easy for kids to transition from school to home and not make it just like one more extra thing for families. So this schedule, with this schedule, it's great because in the fall we did not have that chance to send the kids home with a packet of items that they could use, or, you know, we just didn't have any time, so they didn't get that stuff that they needed. And so with this schedule, every week, each cohort will have a chance. So let's say I have cohort A on Tuesday afternoon. I'll maybe send them home with a notebook that has certain activities they can do on their days off. And then again, I can do the same thing for those kids on a Friday afternoon, so they can have it at home. On the days off, the kids at home will also join a morning meeting with the live kids, so we can maintain that, that community, that strong classroom community, that work, team building, and communication. And then some other ideas that we have is that we'll be sending enrichment home activities home, projects. They will be working on online programs like Zern, IXL, Epic, and Scholastic News. We'll have that ability to send stuff home with them, journal prompts and reading, or articles of the week. We could also do some things like a Google Choice Board where they can go on and pick different enrichment activities that they could do independently or in a small group with their family, or in a pod if they have such a thing. And Wednesdays also might be a time where I might partner up 2 kids and have them, 1 kid at school and 1 kid online in a Google Meet, and maybe they're having some kind of discussion about something we read or something we wrote about. So I just feel like that's another great opportunity to keep those kids connected, the ones at home and the ones at school, and try to build that community so that when we do go back in a normal schedule, they aren't strangers to each other. And now you see the schedule. This is our draft schedule. The idea is that in the morning it'll be kind of a soft start. So the kids will have between 8 to 9 to get to school. This just allows some flexibility because we know parents are going to be driving their kids to school more than they probably have in the past. And that will just account for that traffic. So kids will come in around 8. They'll go straight to their classrooms where they'll do some small activities, reading, some math games, connections and check-in stuff. And then at 9, we'll start our academic day. And that'll be from 9 to 2:30, 2:30 to 2:40 probably. And then at 2:40, we need to get the kids to the buses. The buses will leave by 3, and then we will start delivering kids to their parents in their cars between 3 and 3:15. And in all likelihood, it'll be till 4 the first days of school. We also, because we don't want to overlap the kids going to the bus with the kids being walked to their parents' cars. And so Reagan's been really great at being flexible with that. And so that is our tentative schedule. And then Wednesday, you can see touch base with the morning meeting with the whole class, and then office hours, and then plan and collaborating time in the afternoon.
Jen, thank you so much. And thank you to the amazing teacher leadership at the elementary school. Just such thoughtful work, very detail oriented, see the whole picture, always looking out for the best interests of our students, our families, and our teachers. I did want to mention that, you know, the bedrock of a successful in-person learning model is a well-articulated, comprehensive, district-wide COVID-19 safety and wellness plan. That's integral to the confidence of our teaching staff, the confidence of our children, and the confidence of our parents. Having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Lowe, who has some comments to share with us.
Sure, thanks, Chris. I just want to thank everybody for all their hard work on this. This is something unlike anything we've ever had to do before. I thought starting school in a regular year was a lot of work, but the intricacies of these plans and making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students has been at the forefront, and we're continuing to work on these plans. Just when you think you have something figured out, something else comes up, like you make cohorts, but can't have all the cohorts coming from Burlingame, so you have to stop and readjust and redo your plans and talk with people. And we've also got new teachers coming on board and getting them up to speed on, you know, this is our building, but I know you're a fourth grade teacher, you'll be at the high school. We'll show you where that is. And so those types of things. We appreciate all the support, your questions, your inquiries. We take those to heart, and we're working really hard to make sure that we get the best plan out there for everybody. And ride your bikes, because you know what traffic will be like.
We ask questions yet, or we're gonna do plan by school?
I think we should go school by school while they're all still there.
Okay. Are you done, Chris? Are you ready for questions yet, or is there more to present?
No, we're finished, Katie.
Okay.
We're welcoming your questions.
My first question was, I think Jen said it, but I didn't hear very clearly. Are families going to be with two or more kids in the elementary school? Will those kids be on the same day? The
Yes.
same A or B?
That's correct. Yes, they will.
Okay. Great. That's important. The second question is, could you explain to me the plan time on Wednesdays from, it looks like 9:30 to 2:30 for teacher planning each week? Could you explain what's going on in terms of what's happening for all those hours?
I can go there. So during the other 4 days of school, we're hoping to have a co-teaching model of some sort, but classroom teachers are going to be with the kids all day from when they get there to when they leave, including lunchtime. Normal school years, we have an hour a day or more for planning, and that's just not going to probably happen for this year. Also, we have IEP meetings, we have staff meetings, we have MTSS meetings, we have all of those things that we are going to have to continue to be doing this year. And so most likely they will fall on that Wednesday time, as well as our really important planning time to make the best lessons we can for both in person and for that remote part of the day or part of the week. And it takes time to do that. And honestly, I can tell you that probably that won't be enough time to do it. You know, we'll need more time, but that's how we want to plan the day and make sure that we had the time so that we could make the best lessons that we could and do the best that we can this month.
And so does that mean that you, the primary classroom teacher, is teaching everything, including are there specials, or is it just pure academics that are being offered in each cohort each day? How is that working in terms of content?
Chris, do you want to jump in?
Sure. In terms of content, the We're looking at the school year unlike we've looked at any others in the past. And so rather than, usually this time of year, I have pretty much everything planned out from here until May. So what we're really focused on during this first month of school, while we get more comfortable, while the students become more comfortable, while the parents become more comfortable, and we understand and learn more health data from the district, that we are going to emphasize math, reading, and science. And if we can have the opportunities to expand that beyond that, we'll do so. But we think with the amount of regression that has occurred in our community and in our school, that that's where our energies should be focused, in addition to social emotional teaching and wellness of our students and of our faculty. Since April, I've shared with you that the collective trauma and the amount of pain and suffering that our community has endured, our families have endured, and our kids have endured, has changed everything. And so in the early days after September 8th, we're going to be first trying to get make sure that we've got a really solid read on who needs assistance and who doesn't need assistance, and approaching it from that angle. But the idea being, if students are able to self-regulate, they'll be available for learning all year long. So that will be our focus.
Okay, so in terms of the specialist teachers and the specialists, and whether it's speech or whether it's a reading specialist or math, but how is all that playing into this plan? How is that going to work?
Sure. Well, the first thing you have to start with is who among our teaching staff is unable to come back to work. And so I've had those discussions with multiple team members. And so then it is a matter of, well, who's going to cover for those teachers to provide the best experience for our families. And we have a high amount of need. It's going to be needs-based as well. We have unfinished IEPs. We have unfinished gifted and talented testing. We have students who are just beginning their MTSS services. So all of that is going to have to come together to meet the needs of the kids. But again, in elementary school, the first 2 weeks of any school year are about team building and relationship building and social emotional teaching and social emotional wellness. So it all needs to be addressed, Katie. It'll have to be done by priority. In relation to the specials, we had very, very low attendance and participation in our specials in the springtime, despite the fact that some of the most dynamic, fantastic teaching you've probably ever seen online was being presented. It became a matter of we just had too much on kids and families' plates. Families would tell us that they could never get to that piece too. So that's definitely a consideration as well, particularly during the first month, which is going to be unique and unlike any other.
Okay, I think I understood that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Someone else?
Yeah, I wanted to know, Chris, what's the driver of the AABB phase in terms of, what it is that needs to happen so that can go back to in person for everyone?
Yeah, great question, Jonathan. So it became kind of a deductive flow here where we realized that with the conditions that we have right now, our teaching staff and many, many of our families were not comfortable having their children in classrooms with 20 to 23 other kids where it is mathematically impossible to social distance them. So we knew that we knew that, and I felt that if we could get our cohorts smaller, we could socially distance in the classroom. That will increase teacher confidence in the process and coming back to work during these days. And then we're going to continue to monitor it. You know, and I can't predict the future, and I don't know what will happen next, but if things, I'm a very hopeful person that if things begin to improve dramatically and confidence level increases, then we'll begin to shift back to our more traditional elementary school that everyone loves, as well as our schedules and our offerings.
Okay, so it's like an intermediate step, if I'm understanding you correctly. And then we should have clear milestones as to when we move from those 10-person classrooms to normal class. Because I was just trying to understand the CDC or the Colorado Department of Education guidelines that I was reading when it says we're in this yellow zone, which we're in, it says you do not need to have a limitation on cohort size or classroom size, if I read it correctly. So that's
If you
what
have the space for them.
Well,
but it just says normal class sizes may occur.
Yeah.
But it also says social distancing.
I think it's important. It's important to note that the most important guidance we've received has been that local conditions should dictate and drive your decision making. And that's not just about infections. There's a lot of different moving pieces about our community. And again, I think the comfort level of our teaching staff to come back into the building and do what they love, which they've always wanted to do. But they have to know that there's a safety plan. And you mentioned clear benchmarks or clear, like a clear tipping point to go to the next level. That is not out there. I don't know what that is. That's something that we will evolve and learn together, I think, as a community when it's safe to take those next steps.
Okay. All right. I think we should try and figure out, you know, what we think some of those clear things are, so it's not so subjective. Because I think then it becomes really hard to make that next step. But if you say something like, as long as, you know, whatever benchmark we're going to use, as long as the Pitkin County meter is in the green, then we feel those are the conditions that help us move to that next thing. And then we should start moving at that point in time. So, or in the blue, I guess it was, because it wasn't green. The CDE one is
just to be clear.
Yeah,
because I found what I found
to
in a lot of these situations is that if you can set out some of those guidelines ahead of time, then it helps people have something that they feel comfortable, see that we're moving in a positive direction. Those are the trends we want to see. And then, okay, it's time to move forward. But if we leave it to be too ambiguous, I have a real fear that we'll just kind of be, you know, not moving in that direction. So
I think that's addressed later on in the presentation as a district opposed to the school level on what the next step is.
Thank you, Katie. That was the point I was going to make. In order for that to work, it needs to be a district-wide, community-wide, school board, district office, collaborative effort, because I do not have the skill set to make that call right now.
Right. I think one of the things you talked about in the task force was very clear. We want to periodically review where we are, make sure that we have that opportunity to really soundly, thoughtfully, clearly evaluate everything that we have already done, and then start to make plans to go to the next step. This will also be an opportunity for those teachers and all those leadership teams to develop what that looks like at the next step. And when that's clearly articulated, we'll all say, hey, this is the time we're going to move. If conditions don't change, we will start to do that and just have those dates set. I think what you're asking for, Jonathan, is to have a very clear set of circumstances. I think when we met as a team last time, that was one of the goals of the task force. I think multiple members of the task force said we should have a periodic review of the work that and the health of the work of the teachers and the health of the community, and then we can make decisions to go to the next level. So just know that will be done in the committee process with the task force and with the input of all the leadership teams in the various schools and the various school leadership principals. So that's how we do it.
What do we think that frequency of check-in would look like? 2, 3, 4 weeks? What does that frequency look like?
So right now, I think we're still planning on meeting weekly. And then we'll move to 2 weeks. I think we're looking at transition from plans to be monthly. Is what I've heard kicked around, but please, we have to evaluate that and make sure that it's vetted by the team.
Can I just add one thing, just to make clear, I was just kind of reading some of these comments on the side, and I just want to be clear, make sure that it's clearly articulated what the plan is. When I'm talking about specials, we're not just talking about, we're talking about PE, we're talking about art, we're talking about music, we're talking about foreign language. Anything I missed?
Environmental ed. Environmental
ed, thank you. All of those things are all in the special realm that we're not currently in the short term considering in the plan. Is that correct? Just to be clear.
That is correct, Katie.
Okay. And then do we have any plans as an elementary school to perhaps provide some resources if kids or parents are interested in helping their kids still pursue those fields on their own on their days when they're home and perhaps they don't have a full day worth of packet material to work on? Can we provide them either with various links that are free to use online? I know that everyone doesn't want their kids on screen screen times all the time, or perhaps suggestions for art projects or those kinds of things that we're not actually teaching because we can't make that work right now, but things to help them for those kids that are particularly interested or engaged with those activities.
Yes, I mean, and to go to your point, there was a wealth of information shared in April and May, and we will continue to do that. Our problem at the get-go is we just had so much content out there, and we had to streamline it and make a menu option that was easily accessible for parents and for kids. So no, that's always on our mind. We're always looking to provide opportunities for students who have additional time and want to learn more about different things.
Okay.
And
Great,
to speak to that too, Katie, just in terms of the importance of the arts and the importance of music and the importance of all those specials classes are really, we completely understand that. And it has been discussed in our task force as creative ways as we can start to get that in. It's just, we're taking these little baby steps for the first 2 weeks at least to see. And even it may evolve in these next 2 weeks that we have some more capacity to then start building those pieces in once we know who's able to be in the building as far as our teaching staff and what type of resources we will actually need to provide relief for some of these teachers, because they will be with these kids pretty much the entire day.
So are we prioritizing special needs for reading, math, all special academic needs above special? That's not a good word to use, is special academic needs, but we're for the MTSS stuff and gifted and talented, all those other more academic core areas of extra help are being prioritized prior to prioritizing special. Is that a good way to think about it or not really?
I think so, Katie. Of course, our special education population, we have the law to follow and the law of those IEPs. So of course, that will be a priority that we are not only in compliance, but providing services to those students. And the same can be said about our MTSS kids as well as our gifted and talented kids. So we need to get that programming firmed up, ironed out, and understood before we're going to be in a position to offer specials.
Great, thank you. Sorry for going back. I didn't mean to.
So I just wanted to say two things. One, I commend the whole task force, and I think it's great for having a plan that would get us open. And so I think that was priority number one. And so thank you all for coming up with something to do that. And I think that's really a great work on part of the task force and all the teachers. And I think as we get traction on this, that's the important thing. And then we'll start, and then we can, walk and then run. But the emphasis, I wanted to stress that point on, if we can help the community with some kind of clear indicators, because, I know I've talked to families that say, hey, I'm planning on doing XYZ thing. If everything's going to be remote, I might not necessarily even be in Aspen. So if they can have indicators that help them plan, and I think it would be great to be able to give the community that transparency so that we can all kind of be anticipating, okay, this changed, and that means I need to be prepared for this to also change. That either means going forward with more in person, or it could mean going backwards as well. So those are the kind of transparency that we need to be able to give everybody to plan and have time to prepare for. That's what I'm looking for, really.
It helps engage our community as a partner in helping us stay in safe numbers and improve our numbers so that we can have more in-person transitions. So I think that's part of that incentive. If it's definite and they can see where we need to be, then that's helpful.
I agree. I think those are going to be the next steps of this task force, just to make sure that we have that clearly drawn out, where we have to be with the corona meter. What does that mean for your student at your school, and how long does it take to move between those transition points? Those are all great questions that we're doing. It's never lost on me that we're trying to create some predictability in an unpredictable world, and we're going to do our best to do that. But just know this, I think from the standpoint of the elementary school staff and team, they did the best they could with a pandemic plan. It's very tough to do things educationally when safety is your number one priority and the disease is driving all of our decision making with a lot of that. I think that they did a great job of interpreting what that meant and putting that together. And I know that we're going to do a good job moving forward in making the next decision to get open. Because I think when I talk to the staff, I know that that's what they want, but also we just have to be very mindful of the conditions that we're putting our staff into and make sure we account for that.
So I know a lot of people in the chat are anxious to hear middle school and high school. We don't anticipate those taking as much time.
No, I think the time that was allotted for the elementary school, again, I think they had the most extraordinary plan to come up with. And again, we thank them for all of that hard work and again, doing the heavy lift for the district right now and seeing what this looks like. So at this point, I think we should move to, are we finished with questions?
I got one quick question for Chris. Chris and Sarah, thanks so much for the leadership and as well as the task force for sure. Quick summary. I had a couple of folks in the chat ask me directly if you could just briefly summarize the standards by which a family would want to opt into an online platform because of fear or other safety measures they might want to abide by. So can you just briefly summarize what that process looks like for our families in the community?
Sure. I can.
Go ahead,
Sarah. Okay, sure. Only because I was just working on this with Joy. It was August 5th, we sent out a survey to families asking, because we were getting a lot of phone calls of some families who were a hard no, like we can't send our kids back for X, Y, and Z reasons. We don't feel safe. And so we were getting multiple calls like that. So we wanted to get a feel for where people were at. We sent out a survey. A lot of people said, well, I can't answer this until I know what the plan looks like. Totally understandable. But there were also some people who were like, I definitely can't. So Joy has been following up with those people who said they can't come to school in person. And a lot of those families have actually now changed their minds and now are coming to school. So if you've got a kiddo at home and you at first said, I want them to stay on fully online and now, but you feel like the plan will work for you, then just email Joy and she will let me know, because I am in the midst of making the cohorts. I know that's a big question. We're going to be trying to finalize those because we have to mesh those with transportation as well. So we're working on that. So just email Joy if you are still not having your kiddo come into school.
I'd also like to throw in one more thing before we pass it over to the middle school. I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention the amazing work done by our CLD teacher, Ann Ufelder, down here at the elementary school, who does amazing and tireless work communicating with families and meeting the needs of all of our non-English speaking families. So kudos to Ann, and that group of students is very, very important, their success and achievement as well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, you
That
guys.
is a lot
Great
of
job.
hard work,
Well done.
and we appreciate it.
All right. Another group that's just working just as diligently to get students back into an online format, doing a more synchronous model, has been our middle school team. Liz Mader, the principal there, has been working diligently with her leadership team and all of her staff, along with her assistant principal. They are working to develop a synchronous online schedule, and they'll share the details of what that's going to look with us right at this moment. You can ask questions afterwards. So, Liz, you are up.
Thank you. Good evening. Our teachers have been working tirelessly in 2 steering committees as well as a task force. And our goal was to really look closely at a face-to-face model and an online model, because there were questions about which direction we would go. And we're grateful that the elementary school has taken this task of creating a face-to-face schedule, and we feel like we can all learn a lot from that. Our goal will be to start online as a 5th through 8th grade, and then hopefully stagger beginning with 5th grade into a face-to-face model. So we tried to create a schedule that would be, that we would be able to kind of pivot to the in-person model with, should that occur. And yet at the same time, we realized that we can't ask kids to sit in front of a computer from 8:15 to 3:15 every day. It's not how they learn, it's not good for them, and it's really not good for the teachers either. So that was kind of our challenge, was to figure out what do you have to sacrifice, what do you have to give up, and how do we create a schedule that's as close to the so-called normal schedule as possible. So what we came up with was 2 periods before lunch and 2 periods after lunch, thinking that that was about all we thought our kids could handle in terms of the seat time. We played with the idea of 45-minute periods and 60-minute periods, and teachers overwhelmingly voted for the 60 minutes. So every morning we'll start with a morning meeting, which really speaks to the value we place on the social emotional well-being of our students. And we'll have small groups of kids. Every staff member will have a small group that they'll meet with throughout the year. And that will be an opportunity for those kids to have one adult that they can see, ask questions of, check in with, and also go through some social emotional curriculum with. We think that'll be a really important piece as we move through this, so that kids nobody's falling through the cracks, nobody's missing assignments or absent for a number of days. We want to create that that safety net. We will have our world language program as normal. And the one piece we did have to make some sort of sacrifices to is the exploration program. And we really put a lot of thought into this in terms of how do we provide the most choice and opportunity to students without overwhelming the teachers with the number of students. And so each grade level will have 4 explorations per quarter to choose from or be assigned to, and then each quarter will be able to move into a different choice for the kids. And so we're planning on, PE, choir, theater, all of those classes that really weren't as successful in that asynchronous environment. We feel like having time for the teachers to be online using Google Meets, be online with kids during their designated time, that the teachers will be teaching instead of the parents. We heard loud and clear from parents that it was quite a burden for them to interpret some of the lessons and mediate some of the experiences for kids. So we're asking teachers to take that block of time that's allocated to their class, meet with their students, and there's a variety of models for that. So they might meet and do a mini lesson, have kids break into small groups, do some independent work, come back together with the class, but there will be a beginning, a middle, and an end to those real-time classes with teachers teaching them. And we hope that that really helps our parents feel like they can be, assistants, but not the teachers. This is just really a historic time, and I so appreciate all of the teachers who really have been checking in and using their voice and to speak as professionals in the face of so much unknown. But you can go back to the other slide and we'll talk about assessment. I'm going to ask Jason, our assistant principal, to speak about the assessment piece.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all. Before I begin, I'd just like to commend the elementary school and all of the teachers there and the administration for the hard work that they've done. It's been tremendous to see you guys work through this and to be a part of some of it. And it's been a huge effort. And much the same to our teachers as well at the middle school. They've really hunkered down and helped us out quite a bit. We couldn't have done it alone, and we thank everyone for their help. I want to talk a little bit about student assessment. Obviously my wheelhouse. So part of that has to do with our STAR assessment. And I remember back in the spring, I think Katie brought up the point of let's have students do the STAR assessment at home. And there were some concerns raised around validity. And we still think that's a concern, but we're trying to figure out ways to do it. Becky Oliver over at the high school has been meeting with our STAR rep and getting some information about how to effectively administer the STAR test at home and still get some good, valid information. A concern is that, there will be, we want to make sure we have the baseline data from which to grow and to move forward with. So we will be using that. And very importantly is we really want to focus on the major works of each grade level and find out exactly what those essential learnings are and to develop those common formative assessments and various types of assessments that measure those essential learnings. There's a lot of documentation research that's out there about how and what we should be teaching moving forward and what students missed from the spring. And so how do we harness that information and put it forward in our units of study moving forward? We do imagine that we will see some of the slide that Chris Baston was talking about. We want to find out where those gaps are and how do we then accelerate students moving forward, and recognizing that there is a sense of urgency at this point around how our kids are getting accelerated into their grade level that they're currently moving into. So we think we have a pretty good plan. We just need to find out how teachers feel that it will work the best for them to be able to assess. We hope to lean on understanding by design and using the backward planning model for them to be able to plan the right modules and the right units of study to assess our students.
Thank you, Jason. During the spring, we chose to use sort of a pass, no pass approach because it was an experiment in terms of how well kids could access the curriculum. But we will be grading and we'll be using formative and summative grades. So formative meaning really trying to find out what kids know, working with them along the way to make sure that they're understanding. And then summative is projects and assessments that we will use to look at student learning. There'll be a late policy that'll be determined by the grade level teams. We'll be taking attendance during each class period, and we really expect kids to show up and go to school. You can go to the schedule now. I just want to talk a little bit about the student well-being. You can see that on Wednesdays, we have our early release day, and we're going to spend a little more time in our social emotional learning block. And so we're trying to pay close attention to the kids. At the middle school level, they miss their friends. They need that social time. So we really want to create that. We want to build community, and we want to make sure that students really feel like they're part of the school. So we'll have the morning circles every morning, a longer time on Wednesdays. And then on our school will finish at 2:15, and teachers will have office hours from 2:15 to 3:30, or excuse me, 2:30 to 3:30. And but throughout the schedule, we'll be meeting with our students in special education, gifted and talented, our culturally and linguistically diverse students. We had a lot of success in the spring with integrating those that special support to our schedule. And I have a lot of confidence in those teachers in being able to do that again during this time. So now we'd love to hear any questions that you might have.
I have a couple
Yeah, go
first.
ahead.
Always. So Liz, there's 3 core classes per day. Are they the same core classes each day, and what are they? Because I'm pretty sure there were more than that before. So I believe we had a separate reading and a separate language arts class in 5th grade before. So what are the 3 core classes, and are those meeting every day? Is that how it works?
Jason, I'm going to let you explain how that works, if you don't mind.
It's a great question, Katie. You're right. We do have separate reading and language arts classes. And so part of the work that we're thinking about, and our 5th grade and 6th grade teams have been doing this for quite a while. And what we feel is beneficial is to be able to use those periods of time to do sort of interdisciplinary work and really wrap in the literacy component with the language arts classes and other content areas, so that all teachers are able to teach the reading piece. They're all elementary teachers, and they're all able to address that. So that is our primary goal for doing that, is building that backward design model so that they can learn the literacy pieces that they need, as well as the production in terms of writing and speaking.
So what will the classes be? You'll have 3 separate core classes. What are those classes?
Basically, what it boils down to is for each grade level, they have language arts, they have math, they have social studies and science. And so our schedule, the way we've designed it, is essentially identical to what we have during the regular red, black day schedule and the periods that they see. So last spring, the teachers were seeing probably in the neighborhood of 100 kids at one given time. And now with our new model, they're seeing 22 kids in language arts, or roughly 22 kids, a full class size, but nothing bigger than that. And they're seeing that for math, they're seeing that for language arts. It was a little trickier for social studies and science because of the way our schedule works. So they will still be seeing about 40 kids for those classes for the synchronous time. And what we've decided to do with that is, in some cases when we do breakouts, they might, when they meet with one group of students synchronously, might be one day, then the next day they might meet with the other group synchronously. And so that way they can target their efforts and their instruction that way. But for the most part, by doing what we did, we were able to keep our class sizes down to the 20s, which we're very excited about. And I think our teachers are feeling really good about that as well.
So will, just to be clear, one core will be math, one core will be language arts, and the other core will alternate days between science and social studies, or does it depend on grade level?
So right now, our social studies and science teachers are working on development of a block schedule, or sort of a block instructional schedule, where they have an opportunity to teach, for example, one group of kids for 2 to 3 weeks in science. And then they will switch with the social studies teacher, and they'll meet with those students every day. They'll switch with the social studies teacher and meet with those students that didn't already have science for about 3 weeks for a unit that they're doing. So they're trying to alternate and create a block to do that, so they meet with them every day, but it'll be focused on a period of time for 3 weeks here, and then the next 3 weeks for a different group of students. However, because of the way that our language arts piece works and our math piece works, those teachers will see those students every single day, and they'll rotate through.
But I would say, Katie, just for clarity's sake, the typical schedule in a normal year, science and social studies, one's on a red day and one's on a black day. So they alternate, and we'll continue that.
I thought in some grades they do science one quarter and then social studies the next.
They do, as a matter of fact, in 6th grade, for example, they'll do a quarter of social studies in Mark Munger's class, and then he'll transition to a quarter of science. It just depends on the grade level. 5th grade, they did it even shorter, so half a quarter. They would transition back and forth. I believe that this year, if I remember correctly, it's been a lot to think about, the 5th grade is doing quarterly transitions, much like the 6th grade. And then 7th and 8th grade are looking at, instead of doing every other day for one content, they're looking at trying to figure out how to do 3 weeks at a time. So that's just something to support the online learning piece and to reduce the cognitive load for a student in social studies and science.
So how are we handling, or what's the plan for handling, same question I asked elementary school, I mean, any MTSS, any gifted and talented, any reading interventions or math interventions, all those kinds of things. How does that fit into the schedule? Because there's less time on Wednesday for that, it looks like. What's the plan for those things?
I think it's a multi-pronged approach that we're looking at. Right now, one of the things that we're thinking about, and like Chris said, we're really starting off the beginning of the school year as a soft start. We're focusing on building those relationships, making sure that everyone understands the protocols in the classroom, where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to do. And then as we're transitioning, Google Meets allows us to do, will be allowing us to do breakouts for different groups of students. So where the general education teacher would be working with various groups of students, we would have a para, or we would have a special ed teacher in the classroom or in that Google Meet, going into a breakout to support different students throughout the class period. So they're getting their support that way, but they're also getting the support through differentiated instruction. One of the things that we've come up with as a standardized piece for our Google Classrooms is to have a green, blue, black model of choice for students to, obviously that's a skier type of coding, but basically it's more challenging type of content, versus green being more easy to access content for students, so that they can choose their rigor level as they work through it. So it's really designed to give students choice and to challenge themselves as they can move through that progression of learning. So they can choose a little bit, but they're also going to get support from special ed teacher or para in those breakout sessions when they become available.
Any other questions? I just, I appreciate that it sounds like you all listened to feedback from the experiences that we had in the spring, and I appreciate you addressing many of those with the synchronous learning and whatnot. So thanks for your hard work, and you know, I'm sure it took many hours of planning as well. So anybody else with questions or
I just
comments?
a quick question. When you talked about embedding in the other classes, the writing, the speaking, and the literacy, is there going to be specific professional development training on those, on how to embed and utilize those skills in all the other subjects as you mentioned?
So a lot of our teachers over the years have been doing project-based learning types of projects. They've been doing them for many years. So this is not anything that's particularly new to them. In fact, I would argue that the schedule has created more roadblocks to this type of literacy learning and content learning. And in a way, this is a silver lining for us to be able to embed all of this, everything that they've had to do and had to create beyond the boundaries of the schedule. So they've been doing it for years. 6th grade has been doing it for a long time. 5th grade has been doing it, and they're eager and chomping at the bit to make more of that happen. 7th and 8th grade does not have this sort of a separate language arts and reading type of component because it's already embedded in the work that they do. So what they have in lieu of that is a 5th grade or 5th period integrated studies course.
And that's not, yeah. There's no IS then for middle school in this model.
The integrated studies is sort of one of the, it's a little bit of a transition we're thinking about, but we're not there yet. Integrated studies is sort of an extra class that teachers would create. So it might be like a stock market class, for example, in 8th grade, or it might be researching a little bit about plastics in the oceans around science, something along those lines. And so they would build in some of those extra classes for students. And in some cases, we would build in these enrichment classes for students so that they were able to further themselves in, say, math or literacy. So it might be something like literacy pieces that Caroline Hansen put together. And in other cases, we had students were getting extra support in, say, special education services or MTSS. And so we use them in those ways. We're leaning toward, in the future, down the road, thinking about how we can use that more effectively as a what I need time, like they use at the elementary school and are in a lot of different schools across the country.
Could I ask just one more question to follow up on earlier one that I just thought of? You mentioned there's one exploration per quarter. What explorations will be offered and which explorations will not be offered?
That's a really good question. And what we found, for example, TMI, as an example, is a really difficult class to teach online because kids have sharp knives and cardboard and hot glue guns, and they don't have those materials at home. And so that makes it pretty tricky to do TMI. The coding aspect of TMI we can still do. So coding is something that we can offer moving forward. It's one of our STEM classes. Intro to computer science is something we can still offer. We also have our wellness classes we can still offer. So there are a number of them that work really well for the online space, and there are some that we're still trying to develop. We might have to reframe what those look like. So maybe it's not necessarily acting, theater performance. Maybe it's something like the history of theater, something along those lines. And so some of that is still in development in terms of how we can make these work and retrofit them into something that's meaningful and engaging for students.
So when do we, when the school start, what, do we have a time frame for when we'll have those decisions made and parents will be able to, and kids will be able to have some input into their prioritization for what they would like to be in? Since that's typically been something they've been able to have input into?
Yeah, for the classes that students have the ability to have input on, a lot of those will still happen with the exception of a couple of classes. We do have a framework that we've already put together to be able to rotate kids through 4 explorations per grade level. And it'll be about 25 students per class, 25 to 30 students per class versus what we had last year, which were in the numbers of 100. So that was a real challenge. But this year we found a way to rotate students through. And again, a lot of our exploration classes are assigned classes as an attempt to provide these exploration opportunities for students as opposed to selecting them.
So just to be clear, because I'm sure there's some folks who are wondering, you know, typically we've had a 5th grade band program that's been mandatory, and every kid has had to take something in 6th grade like fire, and they floated through. Do we still have an arts program, or I don't know how you do a quarter of band necessarily, and maybe you do. Well, I know you don't have any conclusions yet, but do we have anything where we're leading on this so parents have an understanding of what is still under consideration versus what might be not under consideration anymore?
Can I just say one thing about that, Jason, and then you can jump in? We're meeting with our explorations teachers tomorrow to talk about ways that they might modify their classes. And we're really wanting to hear their feedback, like from Andy, you know, how do you want to teach band to 5th grade? And how can we modify that so that it makes sense for the teacher and the kids? But I also wanted to say that we're interviewing 2 candidates tomorrow for a STEM position that and they both had a lot of really neat ideas about online learning. And, you know, there's some exciting things happening in those exploration areas. And, you know, Ray Lampy's already trying to put together art kits for everybody, and people will come by and get their art supplies. And, you know, so I think the teachers, the exploration teachers are determined to create engaging classes. And our goal is to just help them make it realistic so that it's not a burden for families or teachers or children. And so but we did ask for input from families on the classes that are, that they could sign up for. So we have all that feedback, and the rest of the explorations, as Jason was saying, we rotate kids through and assign them to those classes. So there'll be a variety, but they might look a little, like he was saying, we're not going to do cardboard and hot glue and X-Acto knives, but we might do some really cool online robotics type class.
And I would also add too that you know, we are prioritizing those compulsory classes that we had at 5th grade, for example. We're trying to prioritize those for the 5th grade so that if Andy is able to teach a group of students some form of music, we can do that in 5th grade. And then at 6th grade, we are prioritizing choir as long as we have the opportunity that our schedules match with the shared buildings, then we'll have the choir piece take place. And then same thing for theater. So we are prioritizing in that way. We're still prioritizing wellness as a critical component for each grade level as well as art. And so we think we have a pretty good plan. We've got the rotations ready to go. And as far as getting the kids rostered in there, we're just waiting for tomorrow to make sure that we are able to do what our exploration teachers think that they can do. So as long as we get that, we're going to load them all in, and within a couple of days, we'll have those schedules out to all the parents, and they will replicate exactly what we're doing for our online day.
I would encourage you to communicate what the new classes are to the parents so they understand what they're signing up for. You know, if it's something that's different than it's looked for before, I think clarity is very important. So folks understand they're only allowed 4 a year. They're going to really matter to these kids. And they're going to understand what they are, especially the kids that are arts focused, that especially performing arts focused, where we're perhaps looking forward to a full year of band or a full year of choir. You know, there's a small group of kids that are very focused on that, and I think it's important to make sure that we have clarity, as well as potentially look for outside of school resources if we can't make it happen during the school day. But there are other entities in the Valley that help provide arts education that are, I'm sure, willing to step up to help on an after-school basis, you know, on an online basis as well. So just I encourage clarity and communication around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We'll make sure to try to get that out there. We know that it's there's a lot of ambiguity, and we're working hard to kind of push through that. And that is a really good point, and we'll do the best we can to get that communication out to parents. Last year,
I hate
sure.
turning shit in that late, but man, oh man, like I don't know what to write right now. Cool.
Tag, please mute yourself.
On that note, Katie.
Close by thanking Justin and our administrative assistant, AP and Karin, because they have put in hundreds of hours in figuring out the schedule and moving children around and teachers around, and you can't imagine. It's unbelievable. So thank you so much to all the staff for all the work they've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Just a question for the overall plan. Like, I'm assuming we're gonna have like quote unquote virtual back to school nights, so like parents can like hammer out all these questions and, you know, all those questions and suggestions that Katie had. And then the other thing, and I'm just assuming that that will be communicated quickly to parents so that they can prepare for that, and then, you know, have some basic information and then come prepared for questions, hopefully. And then the other thing I would say, just for every school, to make sure we have that good feedback loop from the parents, that immediately starts, like, even now. So like, what do you like about this plan? What's going to be difficult for you in this plan? Just so we can get those issues out as quickly as possible and have you guys give time to react and try and be as responsive to the community as we can. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do everything because we're operating in a challenged environment, to say the least, but just to make sure those feedback mechanisms are there and that we are being responsive as responsive as we can.
And I'd have feedback mechanisms built in for teachers as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
for everybody, the
Yeah.
staff as well, to make sure that we're getting support as soon as possible to people who are struggling with this, because
Yeah. And that'll be district wide for sure.
So just on that note, I will say that our back to school night is Wednesday, August 26th. I had originally said Monday, August 26th, but it's Wednesday at 4:30, and we invite parents and kids. You'll be getting an invitation from teachers, and we'll go over the whole schedule and answer questions. So we're looking. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's good to know.
Thank you.
All right. So
Excellent.
do you have another middle school?
Liz and Jason, if I can get your attention here real quick. I just want to remind you, and I know this you get, but I'm going to underscore it anyway. Really appreciate your continued openness to all of the collaboration requests and all the coordination requests that are coming from teachers, as well as obviously parents and some of the kiddos even. It's the same attitude, obviously, that we practiced during the task force, and clearly the task force is going to show continued leadership in that accommodation and collaboration to keep as many people on the bus, so to speak, as possible, to keep that relationship and that connection and that belief and that buy-in. So really appreciate your open-mindedness as you continue to attack the specials and the elective stuff that we were just talking about, and try like hell, as well as for the elementary school, try your darndest to keep some of that into the schedule and the program for our kiddos. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, the social emotional side, as you guys well know, is vital for our kiddos. So appreciate your openness. Keep showing that. That's true leadership. That's going to get us through this together. Thanks.
Thanks to all of you for your leadership as well.
All right, are we ready
I
to
think
move
we're
on
ready to move
to high
into
school?
our last presentation. Well, not our last presentation, but our last school presentation. And that will be Sarah and Becky. Are you guys ready to go?
We sure are.
All right.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And I just have to say kudos to everybody, the parents, the teachers, and even at the high school, we had students weighing in. I know it's been a huge community effort to meet the various needs of everybody. And to do that in terms of a pandemic. And now, of course, we have this awful fire. So I hope people are staying safe. I know the air quality is not great right now. So I just one more thing that we're going to have to deal with. At Aspen High School, teachers have been meeting since early July, reflecting on the fact that our crisis plan in fourth quarter was not robust, nor did it have some of the high academic expectations that we normally offer. So teachers were very clear about what needed to change, and so they spent a lot of time, countless hours, streamlining Google Classroom, and thinking about ways to make it easier for students and parents so that everything's going to be the same. So the technology piece is going to look much different. We are also going to use Zoom in the interim, and then we may switch back to Google Meets if they end up rolling out breakout rooms. But at this point, Zoom is safe and secure, and it has a breakout room feature that will allow teachers to teach, which will better resemble what they were doing in the classroom last year. Just so that you know, all of our classes will be live, meaning they're going to be online, but students are expected to log on at a specific time. Attendance will be taken, and it's going to be business as usual with this idea that we are going to still offer really incredible a really incredible education. Kids are going to be engaged and working hard, meeting the graduation requirements they need to be successful after they leave Aspen High School. And actually, if you'll go back, Eliza, I'm just going to talk about, so this came up, Kim Zimmer, who's our technology integrator. This is one of the things that is really going to be different. We want kids at Aspen High School to understand that this is school and this is serious. So this is the online learning agreements, and it's called Aspen High School Skier Pride. So the preparation, we want kids to understand that every day they're showing up with their materials, they're not having any distractions, that they're contacting teachers if they do need to miss a class so that they can see the recording of the actual direct instruction, the modeling, even a short lecture. They know that they have to check their Google Classroom and Google Calendar daily. And then they also know that at the high school level, they need to be dressed in an appropriate workspace. We're also going to talk about how students can use in Zoom, they can choose a background. And again, that actually allows kids not to worry about their environment or what might be distracting, or maybe they're just very private and don't want anyone to see what's going on in their home. But that's a really great option for them. Respect, make respectful comments to teachers, respect facial expressions, respect shared documents in online spaces, and understanding that they need to mute when asked. Integrity, who are you when no one is looking? Turning in their own work, citing sources when they use others' ideas. I think it's really important that we help our high school kids navigate that idea of academic integrity in an online world. This is going to be their future. They're going to go to college, and many of their courses are going to be online, and really understanding what that means in terms of integrity. Using their ASD accounts for school use only. And I thought this was a great acronym. Always think before posting. Is it true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind? And be supportive of classmates. Discipline, we want to stay on task, provide feedback. They're not going to distract each other. They're going to follow the class procedures. And then effort, persevering, trying their best, turning in assignments, asking for help, participating, and then creating thoughtful work. Our teachers have worked really hard to replicate the in-person classroom setting in an online platform. And by having this be standardized, by having Google Classrooms be standardized, kids are going to understand what is expected of them. So academics are really going to be a huge focus. We want kids to be reading, we want them to be writing, and we want them to be thinking critically so they're making their way through their curriculum, whether it's IB or just preparing them for IB. To that end, we had to come up with a little bit of a different schedule. So Eliza, if you'll go to the next one. So this schedule was taken from students, teachers, the summer committee, thinking about how to meet the needs of kids. So Mondays are going to be, we're listening to the science that said, you know, students really do work better in the afternoons. So we're going to start with the staff meeting. That's going to make sure all the staff is on board and knows what's expected of them. Then we're going to have PD and department time. So this is going to be collaboration for the first couple of weeks, ensuring that all of our departments have common assessments, that they're all in line with each other and helping support each other with best practices for online instruction. Then we're going to go into half-hour classes. The idea behind these is this is a place for all teachers to meet with kids and say, listen, this is what is going on this week. This is what you need to have prepared. This is when things are due. And then it's also that time for a teacher to say, oh, hey, Sarah, I noticed that you didn't turn in the things that were due Thursday and Friday, so you get to stay and talk to me for a few minutes. We're giving them a quick break, just a quick half-hour lunch break. And then we end with office hours and the recommendation of teachers. It's really important to mute. The recommendation of teachers was to end with office hours on Mondays so that students, after they've gone through their 7 classes, if they are confused or have questions or really are feeling left out, they have time to meet with their teachers. So Monday is going to set the stage for the week. It's also a day that we oftentimes, if there is a holiday, Mondays are the days that get hit, and so we didn't want a huge instructional chunk of time to be impacted. Then we went to an alternating block. We normally have 7 periods, but we added in an 8th period, which I'm going to let Becky talk about in a minute, which is our crew to address social emotional learning. We went with 75-minute blocks. We toyed going with 90. And the feedback from students, which really value, was that they just felt like they could not sit in 4 90-minute classes. So what we've done is we've taken 2 75-minute classes each morning, and then there's a 2-hour block. One block of that is really 1 hour of that really should be, get outside, take a deep breath, eat some lunch. They're also going to do some homework where you can read and annotate away from a screen. And then that is a great time for students to have appointments with teachers. The big focus at the high school is going to be conferencing one-on-one. In this online world, students are going to need that dedicated time with staff. And so this 2-hour chunk of time is really going to help make that happen. Then we'll end with 2 more classes after that break. Crew is only going to meet once a week on Wednesdays. And again, this is to address the social emotional needs of students. And in a minute here, I'll let Becky talk about that. Our goal is much like the middle school, our block periods, we'll be using the PEBC workshop model. We have a 2-hour professional development that'll happen once teachers are back. And the idea behind the workshop model is that a teacher gives some direct instruction, whether it's modeling, how to do a certain problem or a scientific proof or a lab, or annotating a text. And then students have time to wrestle with the concept and go into breakout rooms, work with their peers, come back together, ask questions, go back into a breakout room, and then you end with a reflection and a closing, perhaps a formative assessment to assess where kids are in their understanding and learning. That's really the flow that's going to happen. And like I said, they'll be getting some great PD about how to do that in an online world. The other thing that's really important to us is the notion of the social emotional. We are looking into an assessment that we were lucky enough to have somebody, a donor, help us with it, which will actually highlight risk factors for students. So it will help us identify those students who might be at risk, and then we can do interventions to create resiliency so that they're going to achieve at the highest academic levels. And this is all steeped in data and science. And as Jason mentioned earlier, Becky has been hard at work getting our STAR assessments up and running for grades 9 through 12. We normally don't assess our 11th and 12th graders at the beginning of the year, but due to the fourth quarter being just so out of the ordinary, we are going to assess the reading and math of all of our students just to make sure that nobody has fallen through the cracks. And I think that's a lot of information. I don't want to talk too much. I want to give Becky a second to quickly talk about Crew, and then I can go ahead and answer any questions. So Becky, do you want to give them a brief overview about Crew, please?
You bet. So Crew is going to be an opportunity for kids to get together with a small group once a week. We're going to divide the groups into 9, 10, and 11, 12 groups so that they have some like-minded peers to support them right now. Our goal with Crew is going to be looking at those social emotional learning skills and really trying to provide an opportunity for kids to develop relationships, get into community with other kids, have personal check-ins with an adult. We're going to basically kind of say that that person, there's one teacher for 10 to 12 kids, and that person is going to be their go-to person. If they feel like they might be struggling social emotionally or academically, that teacher notices that they're having some challenges, they're going to alert the MTSS team, the counselors, the administration, so that we can quickly wrap supports around kids and help them be successful. And I think one of our goals with this will be that as we can eventually transition back to in-person, we'd like to be able to transition first with these Crew groups, being able to get together outside, doing a fun activity, something to be able to support one another. But it's really there to support the emotion of social emotional and just the academic wraparound for these kids.
Great, thank you so much, Becky. And Becky's hard at work as she speaks, getting these Crew groups together. They are very intentional. I should also say that for our week that is a soft start, both our online course schedule is listed on our homepage, and then the soft start week beginning Monday the 24th, we are going to have an onboarding session for each grade level on Wednesday, the 26th, where various teachers are going to go over all the technology. So how to use the Zoom, how to use Rocketbooks, and this is for parents with their student. And the idea is that we want everyone to be speaking the same language and understand all the tools that we'll be using. We'll also go over Crew at that onboarding session, and those will be by grade level so we can tailor it to the specific needs of each group. We are also going to partner with Aspen Family Connections so that we will have the presentation in Spanish, and we will have somebody using the chat to answer questions in Spanish so that we are meeting the needs of everybody. Our students will run through a minimized schedule Thursday and Friday, the 27th and 28th, and then teachers will be reaching out for those individualized appointments in the afternoon. And then there'll also be a supply pickup, you know, kind of like McDonald's. We're going to just throw things in your window. I'm kidding, but it will be a little bit like that as you drive through to get supplies. Everyone's been working really, really hard. We know we do not have a perfect scenario, but we are confident that if we are given a green light to bring kids back into the building, that the schedule we've done is easily transferable if we had to go into cohorts. So we would probably do alpha cohorts, and we do a week on, week off, and those block schedules with a little tweaking of the times would work really, really well. So we have staff hard at work already having that backup plan in place should we do that. So I will open it up for questions. I'm sure I've left some things out, and I would guess people are getting a little tired, so I don't want to talk too much, but I'm here for questions.
Thanks, Sarah. That's a great overview. I really appreciate the Crew and the social emotional attention. I think that's so important, and just looking forward to how you could adjust the schedule to in person. That's particularly helpful.
Yeah, and I can share that with you because the staff has already done that. It's really just alternating blocks that are 90 minutes. We wouldn't have that break in the day for the in-person.
Yeah, that's great.
So question, Sarah, are
Sure.
we able to offer the full complement of classes? Is there anything that's not going to be offered that normally is?
Nope. Our teachers have been really, really great, and everybody is planning and ready to teach. So for some of the ones that are a little curious, I know Erica had a great plan for choir. She's actually doing individual voice meetings. The block plan allows her that time. So she'll really be working with kids individually in terms of their needs, in terms of voice. And then they'll be coming together once a week and doing kind of a compilation, much like we did at graduation with the beautiful choir. So she's got that under control. The music theory actually lends itself to a lot of digital work. So that'll make a lot of sense. Andy is already talking about doing some of the individualized work with the band and then also with the jazz ensemble. And then some of the other interesting ones, yoga is really easy online. Athletic conditioning, they're going to be doing just more, you know, your own strength. So a little bit more of like a CrossFit or cross training type thing. And then John Fisher is working really hard. Drafting is online. And then he is being creative with home projects that will get kids working with woodworking. And Bonadies will be teaching from the kitchen and demonstrating. So it'll be a live cooking show for people that have basic cooking and Pro Start. So everybody's worked really hard to make it work for kids.
That's great.
How are we fitting college counseling and all of the stuff related to kids transitioning to college? How does that work?
Sure. Well, what's great about that is that they have their own online appointment system. And with that 2-hour block in the middle of the day, that's going to give them a really great time to meet with kids. Same thing with office hours. They're also hopeful that because they'll be meeting with families digitally, they're actually going to be able to meet with more families easier. In the sense that families don't actually have to come to campus and work around work schedules, that some of these virtual meetings will make that easier. I don't know that the chairlift chats will continue this year due to COVID, but I'm certain if they're allowed to, they'll keep that going. Right now, we've got boot camp on the 24th. It's going to be virtual. And then they are doing individual meetings with all seniors to get them ready for college. And then the senior roundtables, we're looking at how we can have them in cohorts of 10 outside on campus. And Chris Durham's going to ensure that we have hot spots so that they can all use their laptops. Counselors, the same thing. Counselors are going to be running groups for social emotional support and planning. They will also be doing individual appointments. Our ESS department will actually be bringing students into the building, and they have that. They'll be talking about that in a second, but we will have them in a hybrid schedule where kids are here a couple days a week so that they can actually get support and get the targeted instruction they need. And then in terms of, college counseling is going to offer skinning. That's amazing. I'll be skinning behind, really out of breath. But we're trying to use that flex time of the office hours and that 2-hour block to ensure that we can work with students in terms of targeting reading intervention, math intervention, and then also with any of our ESS students. And then any of those students, obviously, that need individualized attention because maybe they do need a challenge and we need to address their ALP. That's the time to do it.
Okay. And what about, I don't know if perhaps everybody in the high school already knows this, but in terms of college testing and that type of thing that we in prior years have posted and had a full day that kids have done that in school.
Yep. So they moved the test date, Katie. So September 23rd is a Wednesday, and all of our seniors will be taking the school test day SAT. So instead of attending any of their classes on Wednesday the 23rd, they will be taking the SAT as of right now. That is going to be a Herculean effort to consider how we might be able to get cohorts of 10 in our building and elsewhere for a 4-hour test. But I have the utmost faith in college counseling and counseling that they're gonna handle that. We are also slated right now for the October 3rd national test date for the SAT. Again, that's gonna depend on the county guidelines. We're not able to close it to anyone outside. So we ended up canceling the 29th of August test because everybody from all over the state of Colorado and elsewhere was trying to register for that test, and there was no way for us to get them all in the building safely. So we are looking at those 2 tests right now.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, Sarah, Becky, and the team, thanks so much. A special tipping of the hat for the good ear for the kids, the students, and how you guys have constantly integrated with them. That's super cool. And I also appreciate the point that you guys made about keeping a mindful eye on those steps, the standards and the steps for us to eventually migrate back into a in-class model. And having that as part of your planning is super important. Thank you.
You're right. You're so welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I'll just, on a closing note, I've never worked in an elementary school before, and so I am so excited to have fourth graders at the high school. If I can't have a building full of high schoolers, I'm so excited, Chris. I'm gonna adopt those little fourth graders, and we're just gonna make them more excited for high school than ever before.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Taking me back to my roots. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
All right.
Sarah alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I think at this point, let's turn it over to a brand new special ed director. Yeah, give us kind of an update on what's going to happen with our students with special needs. I just want to let everybody know this was a point of special concern for the task force, not only students with IEPs, but students with 504s, ELL students, all those students that have some sort of need that needs to be met beyond what we can typically offer in some of the different online environments. I think they were very thoughtful and still want to hear about what we're going to be doing to address those students' needs. So, Adrian, why don't you tell us what the preliminary thinking looks like?
So first off, I wanted to thank our special education teams in each one of the buildings because they've worked really diligently doing a lot of prep work in regards to this, knowing that nothing really could be finalized until the schools came up with their plan. So now, because the schools have a plan based on your guys' vote, we're going to, in a sense, pivot and really try to think about how are we going to bring some of our students in to receive the services that they need. The prep work that I've done with each team is at the elementary school. We went through each one of our students there and kind of figured out, is it an in-person learning, or can it be you like push into a classroom or pull out of the classroom based on the needs, looking at the severity rating scales with that. Now that we have an A and a B schedule with that, that gives us a little bit more guidance on exactly what is it going to look like and whether or not it's going to meet the educational needs of those students there. At the middle school, we've talked about tentatively bringing students in on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. However, with the plan that we see it now with more detail, we may need to pivot with that early release on Wednesday, but that's still thanks to Michelle and Emily over at the middle school and their diligence to it to look at which kids need to be in learning and what does that look like for them. High school is doing something very similar. We looked at all their students. So we have some students coming in 2 days a week and other students potentially coming in up to 4 days a week, depending upon their needs and what their schedule would look like. So we're able to really individualize the supports and services that we have for them. And it's just intriguing to see the good work and the good thoughts that all these teams are having. When I start looking at all the other things beyond, say, our students with disabilities, I start looking at our 504 teams, looking at whether or not those 504s specifically need to be tweaked or changed depending upon the new learning environment. So I've worked with, it's hard because staff isn't in the buildings, but as soon as the 19th rolls around, I'll start working with our 504 teams in the elementary school, middle school, and high school, and start having them run through our 504s and review if anything needs to be changed within that 504 to address their current needs that they have in a remote learning environment for that. Same thing will be with kind of our ALPs or advanced learning plans for our gifted and talented students as a whole to say, okay, where are we at with that, and do we need to tweak or change those based on what a remote learning environment looks like for them. For middle school and high school and elementary school, that's okay, now we're in person, what does Ascent look like in that avenue? Also worked with our school nurse to review all of our healthcare plans that we have in place to sort of see, are there any things or any plans that we need to revise or to look at based on, models of kids and with cohorts at that point in time. So again, now that we know a little bit more about what's going on, we could actually really dive into it and make some, specific, plans for these students. Just because we know that it was real effective for some students, but it wasn't very effective at all for other students.
Right.
So how are we going to individualize a service plan for them going into the future, at least, as soon as school starts. So, any questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. No, that's great. Thank you.
Is there a timeline when we're talking about working through the hybrid model and we're contacting, are we planning on having contacted everybody and have the model established by a certain date?
Well, now that I know the model,
Okay.
now we can start going through and rolling it out. I already got a letter set up, ready to roll. So as soon as it's all ready to go with the high school. Information has already been sent to parents about transportation, thinking about the high school at this point in time. The same thing needs to happen for the middle school as well, thinking about bringing in students for that. So, I guess I need more time with my middle school team to sort of to figure that out. And then we had a resignation last week in one of our middle school, special education teachers. So that's kind of adding another big bump in the process. So we'll figure it out. I trust that the team we can do it. So, so the timeline would be, online for middle school and high school is starting on the 26th, actually thinking about trying to bring students in the first day on September 1st, which is that first Thursday or that first Tuesday, afterwards. And then also kind of embedding it, thinking about the elementary school when they bring in kids on August 8th, that we're ready to go with our services.
Okay, so almost
September,
immediately.
sorry.
Basically, almost immediately is the idea. Okay. Great. Important support for those families.
Other questions?
Appreciate your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, stay with it. You got a lot of assessments obviously to do when we get the engine going. So the work's still in front of us. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Especially the year-end stuff, it's got to be really.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Welcome. You got an interesting first year.
One of a kind.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
We're happy to have you.
I have something else. That's the end of our presentation. So,
All right.
any other global conversations you'd like to have around the plan or conversation right there? I just got to make sure I project. Hope that be heard out there.
I just want to say how impressed I am. It's really an amazing piece of work from every building and special ed. It's really impressive amount of work went into this. So congratulations to everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Theron and Dave and the rest of the team, this is a start. Obviously, this is not the capstone event. This is a start. So the key is going to be to communicate until you over communicate. That's a good problem to have for people to say enough already. I got it. Right. So we've got to continue to invest in that energy. Thank you.
Thank you guys. I think we've made huge progress in the last couple of weeks. So I think it's really remarkable, and I think it's awesome that the teachers have been so involved in developing this. So it's exciting. The one question I have that I want to make sure, because I think there may still be, and we may not have the answer yet, there may be still some questions from the community about this, which is on that last slide page, it talks about moving to hybrid. And I'd just like to clarify the process. Should, we get into that, do we call it green or blue? Green for the state and blue for the county. When we get in that, what happens? We talked about how often we're evaluating, but how quickly would we move to getting kids back? Would it be progressive in terms of first you start with 5th grade and then you move to 6th grade? What kind of thoughts are around this, or if we don't have the answer, when will we have the answer by? And I'm making the hopeful assumption that we are moving in continue to move in a positive direction. But I think it would be helpful to have, maybe we don't have clarity, but we have some indication of where we're moving on that front. So it's very clear what the metrics are and how the process works. Can you give us any more on that, Theron? Or Dave, or?
Well, I know that that is one of the priorities of the task force for certain is to identify what that is. And I think that the task force had a lot of questions on how the metrics were being calculated by the County Health Department. And I think a lot of work and clarity has come out of that work. So I think we'll be able to align that fairly rapidly now that we agree on what those need to be. So that was a lot of our previous work was just making sure that we come up with the metric that everybody would agree on how that would be used. So once that's been accomplished, I think it's fairly easy to tie a plan to it.
Okay. Okay. I think it would be good as that changes. I mean, as I think Susan said, this is an evolving plan. I think we need to, the next iteration or next board meeting, I would hope to have some metrics more defined or very clearly, this is how we move and this is how long it takes. And this is kind of the process that we would consider moving into. I think it would be really helpful to everyone to know when this changes, especially for working parents who have to deal with, pre-K, well, pre-K not so much because they're going back, but K through 12 childcare issues. I mean, even the high schoolers need a little nudge. So it would be helpful to know how long that's going to last. If we continue that, obviously there's no great answer.
One of the nice things is that with the COVID meter, things don't change real fast, real dramatically, right? It absorbs hits and positive news takes a while. So the way we're thinking about it is 2 weeks creates a trend line, and we could announce then that we're starting to plan for, a less restrictive environment, or hopefully not, a more restrictive environment. I will tell you, the hard metrics question has been elusive, and every single superintendent in the Valley has been asking for it and pushing for it, and we can't, I'm not sure COVID is kind of squishy. It's like a water balloon. You push it here, it squirts over this way, right? So hard metrics is really hard to come by. And, and when you factor in Eagle and Garfield, well, we all know Vale's a really super hot spot, and that's a bad place to be because it's Vale for one. And it's, but actually their numbers are through the roof. So when you look at Eagle County over here, it's not so bad, right? So, and they break it out by, cities and towns. So you can kind of do a rough estimate of what rates are. But it's not quite that clean. It's not quite that granular. And Rob Stein has been pushing hard since long before Theron and I got to our jobs for hard metrics. And they're just not there. Because you see how, like, if you change one thing, but something else changes, you wind up cost neutral. Or if two things move into concerning, then all of a sudden you bump up a notch. So I hope we get hard metrics, but I'm concerned that all we'll be left with is a guide.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, there's Jay.
Jay.
All right. Go ahead.
Just on the comment, Dave, when you talked about 2 weeks for changes, I think it will probably, hopefully, require quicker. Because I know if we get a case, the changes are immediate. So the changes now, right? You have to quarantine certain people, and depending on what happens, things move very quickly to shut down. And as you said, the COVID meter has a long lag. So I would hope that, if that lag is factored in, so basically, to get green and all that stuff, you have to basically have 2 weeks of really good performance. Or at least, because they're 14 moving averages that are updated at the end of a week. So it could actually be 3 weeks. So I hope that after having almost 3 weeks of great news that we could, not take, another 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks and be a month later.
Things would have changed again.
That's not the intention.
Okay.
The intention is 2 weeks moving in the right direction, continue to monitor. COVID meter is adjusted every Friday. We could start communicating every Monday where we are and what we're thinking. But that doesn't mean that we should rush into anything. And in working with, AEA leadership, we think 2 weeks of trend line is really good. And during those 2 weeks, we can begin planning, and then 2 more weeks to execute, so that at the end of 4 weeks, we're a go. Now, that's assuming we've moved into the green or blue zones. If, like, for whatever reason, if the COVID meter jumps up into orange and then into red, we need to respond to that pretty quickly. And the good news is, with both directionalities, we're not alone in that we get to reach out to Karen and her team and discuss options and scenarios and that sort of thing. But we are planning for improving conditions. And, I hate to say it, we're also planning for going into the red zone because, influenza season is coming. And so we're very worried about that, as well as, the winter holidays when folks from all over North America will come here.
Yep.
So we're preparing to have better scenarios. And we're also, part of the reason Aspen Elementary wanted some more time to plan is they're doing some PD around remote learning so that those folks are ready to go. And, so we're kind of excited about that. In that, this time, we don't think we'll be caught unready.
Yep.
Does that make
Awesome. Yep.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate that. That was a great coverage of a lot of hours of hard work. We should move on to our public comments, and we have a list here. People who have signed up online. Tamara, you're first on the list. Are you here?
Can I make a request?
Yes.
I am here.
Do you need a potty break? Yes.
One second, Tamara. I think we might take just a short break.
3 minutes.
Do you mind?
Nope, not at all.
No video. And,
Yeah, you all can also take a break.
Just a quick break. Sorry
Oh,
about
I
that.
think that's a good idea.
Everyone go to the bathroom. Jonathan, I don't know that answered your question, but it's a pretty quick time.
kick the cans.
Let's sort of go through this, while people are waiting, and then after public comment and as
Okay.
we move into the next thing.
Yeah, well, I
Let's
just
do that.
don't want, in case there's somebody waiting to hear about the BOE retreat or something, if we could just tell them now so they don't have to wait.
Yeah, I think it's better to just keep going actually at this point.
Okay.
And then we'll, I think we can touch on each of these, but we're not gonna have time to
Public comment?
get into.
Yeah, but it's probably fair to say that.
Okay, Tamara, thank you so much for waiting. I appreciate the break. And we are happy to have you here, so.
Of course, thank you. Am I on the 3-minute time limit?
We're trying to give everybody 3 minutes and get everybody's voice in the room too.
Perfect. As you guys know, I am a teacher parent. I teach at the high school. I have a student in the middle school and I have a student at the elementary school. So I'm kind of getting all 3 plans and wrapping my brain around it right now. First, I kind of want to speak as a teacher and just thank the board and the administration for really taking to heart what we said at the last board meeting and really involving teachers in decision making. I think it was really important to have the people that are going to be in the classroom and going to be working with students a part of that decision. So thank you for that, first of all. I really, really hope that the care and the time and the attention to safety that was put forth in bringing K through 4 back to in-person learning is going to be taken when we start looking at the middle school and high school. I'm hoping that it's not just a knee-jerk reaction to just, we're in the blue, so let's all show up at the school building. I'm really hoping that we continue to have safety of staff and students as a priority as we move forward looking to everybody going in person. I am really concerned with some of the things that came up in the comments about elementary school teachers and the amount of time that they are going to be with students without any kind of break. I know I love my son and I don't want to hang out with him for 7 hours straight. That's a lot of time. So I'm hoping that there's some plan to address that with the elementary school teachers, because I do think that the mental health of teachers is really important to facilitating good instruction. I think if teachers feel good about where they are, if teachers feel safe, instruction is just going to be that much better. So that's definitely a concern. As a parent, putting on my parent hat, thinking about the elementary and the middle school, I am a little concerned about the MTSS process and the supports for kids. I think that there's often a lot of attention paid to IEPs and 504s, and I am really concerned that the kids on different tiers or lower tiers of MTSS are going to be left behind. I didn't really get a good sense that they are going to get the supports that they need, and I am just really concerned, and I'm thinking about what is that going to look like in the elementary when my student's only there 2 days a week. Is it counseling services that he gets, or is it his reading services that he gets? And are we going to have to choose between the two? So I'm just really concerned about the MTSS program and making sure that no kids fall through the cracks, regardless of what tier they might be on. My greater concern is with the elementary school and the lack of specials. For some students, and my student in particular, specials are like sports at the high school. And to take those away completely, I think would be really difficult for students to deal with. I'm just telling my son that it's going to be reading, writing, and math. He was not excited about the prospects of coming back to school. So I hope that the elementary school will take another look at the specials and how they can really integrate those back in, because they are really important for a large population of students. The last thing that I'm going to say, it's also related to the specials issue. I am concerned that the middle school and the high school can provide all their programming right now, and the elementary school can't. And so I'm wondering what is going to be the cost to our academic programs if we come back in person in the middle school and the high school. Are we going to have to start cutting specials in those schools? Because right now we can run all of our specials at the high school and middle school level. Where we're cutting classes is the elementary school. So I'm really concerned about when we do come back in person in middle school and high school, what's going to be the cost of that? What are we going to be cutting, or are we going to be able to offer a full line of programming? And that's it. My time's up. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Great points, Tamara, thank you. All right, next person is Stephanie Nixon. Are you there?
I'm here. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Stephanie Nixon, and I was hired in 2008, and I was the first Aspen School District employee to be hired entirely over Skype. So get your head around that. Here I am. Full circle. Here it is. So I just thought that was interesting. Dave talks a lot about getting school back to looking and feeling like real school. And I really appreciate those comments when he makes them, because I feel like it's not going to be real school for the elementary teachers if the specialist services are pared down and the specials are going to be gone. I can't imagine a school without those services. I don't actually think it's going to be a real environment if those services are cut or spared. So I'm really concerned about that, of course. I'm really concerned about teachers in the elementary school without a break, 7 hours with no break, no lunch, having kids in the classroom. It's really hard on their mental health. We talk a lot about student mental health, but it's been really hard for the teachers as well and their mental health. And I think it's not easy to have care for children 7 hours a day. And they were given breaks because of specials. So if those specials teachers are, teaching children, they can't provide those breaks. And that's really, really important. I also worry about teachers and how they're going to be evaluated by the state. If teachers are teaching curriculum that they are not certified or specialized to teach, how are we going to evaluate them? And what does that look like for their career? It's not exactly fair. And I know that it's unprecedented in historic times, but we have to look at the evaluation system and what we're asking of their job shift. The arts programs are not a burden. They're actually very, very successful here in Aspen. In fact, I joke with people all the time and the board all the time that we're an art school. Congratulations, we're an art school. Let those teachers teach that curriculum. Find a way to do that. And find a way to give teachers a break and find the way to the arts to come back into those buildings. It gives mental health benefits, again, to teachers and students and staff. Cutting the arts makes me worry that we're going to be like every other district, or every other district that can't afford it. When I think of districts that cut programs, they cut programs because they don't value them or they can't afford them. And I came to Aspen for the school district, and so did a lot of other people, especially this year. And I feel like if we start cutting back on gifted and talented and some of the lower tiers of MTSS and the STEM programming and the band and the arts programs and PE, I mean, I can't imagine. I just feel like we're going to be like any other mediocre district. And that's not who I work for. It's not who I work for. I work for the Aspen School District, and I work for a school district that has very high standards according to the board in the arts. And we've had ends forever in those programs, and it's very impressive. So I just worry about that. I worry about my own kids' education. I'm a parent as well, a second grader. She needs MTS services more than once a week. And I'm worried about what's going to happen to her because she doesn't have an IEP. I just worry about those populations, and I worry that we're going to be face-to-face at any cost. And I don't want the cost to be our identity. I just don't. I don't want to lose the Aspen School District because we're doing everything to get kids in school for a few hours a week. And I just hope that you all consider those things when you're looking at the plans. And I've been on some of the task forces. I've been involved. It's a lot of work, and we've come a long way. I think we can keep going to get some of those identity pieces back. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Michelle Hurley.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. After listening, I'd already decided that I was sending my son back remote because for me, there's too many long-term effects that are not out there. And I still feel like we're putting our kids in an environment and making them experiments and playing Russian roulette and hoping that they don't get sick. But my main concern is when the school's looking for subs and they're asking parents and things to sign up. I guarantee that 75% of the people that taught their kids at home were not able to do the lessons properly, but we're asking these same people to come in and teach our kids just because we need warm bodies in the building. And I think there needs to be more thought into where we're looking for our substitute teachers. You know, I think if the teachers are given time, I mean, yes, I know it's hard to work and do this, but it's, you know, if we had a true remote option, I think there needs to be more into the remote, and then pulling your specials out of school. I mean, I've been out of high school for 30 years, and I still remember that when I was in 7th grade, I won the American Physical Fitness Award, Presidential Award, and you're taking that creativity from the kids. You're asking them to sit there in a classroom with a teacher and only do math, science, English, in those core subjects. But some of these kids need the arts, the music, the PE to get that energy out. I mean, I have a very active 3rd grader that was always in the trouble in the hallway because in between classes, he had a little trouble keeping his little feet from running. And he couldn't wait to get to gym because, you know, he could kick a ball, he could do this, and Jarrett let them free. And they need to be able to have that creativity. You have to figure out a way to put arts back into it, even if it's online, or giving the parents the option for the kids that want it. Because I know for me, I mean, my whole family's in the arts. I can't imagine my kids not being a part of that. It's taking away the culture diversity that we need in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Kelly Carlson. Is Kelly here? She maybe had to go do something else. We can come back. Catherine Whipple. We'll just keep going down. Jenny Roberts. Catherine Kaufman.
Kelly's driving, so maybe we'll come back to her.
Okay. Fiona and Androlaitis. Sarah Burgraff. Laura Maker.
Hi, board.
Hi. I thought we lost connection out there.
I wanted to make sure I got really quick so you knew I was here.
Yeah, thanks.
I just want to say that this is a really great start. I appeared before you 2 weeks ago and gave public comment, the gist of which was that you didn't have a plan in front of you. And I think that you do have a plan in front of you today, which I think is really encouraging. And I think that's a testament to what happens when you involve the community in these big decisions that affect the whole community, right? This is 2 weeks worth of work, and what you have in front of you is astronomically improved. So imagine what sort of options and thoughts you're going to get as the community continues to be involved in this process going forward. And I think, you know, to the extent you can, really commit to transparency in this unprecedented situation, because you're going to come out better for it. The kids are going to come out better for it. Staff is going to come out better for it. And the community at large is going to come out better for it. So I think first and foremost, the thing to remind yourself and to always come back to is a commitment to transparency and engaging with the community as a whole. While it may feel like we've been in this pandemic for forever, it's really only been a few months. The board at the last meeting talked about the importance of following experts and evidence. And I think that we like making evidence-based decisions because it's really easy to say, I'm doing the right thing. This is what science supports, or this is what the expert recommendation supports. And I think the hard thing about what the board has in front of it with this situation is there just isn't the background and the support for any of those sorts of positions, right? Like what you think you know one day shifts the next day. So I would urge you guys to be really cautious of being dogmatic about anything being known, because it's just simply not known. So one of the things that is in the Return to Learning plan, on the very first page is a statement: we know that our younger students are less likely to infect one another, adults and family members. And I would tell you, you don't know that. I mean, the CDC came out with a guidance to healthcare providers 2 days ago, so again, shifting landscape constantly, that says, point blank, it is unclear whether children are susceptible to infection from SARS-CoV-2 compared with adults, and whether they can transmit the virus as effectively as adults. So I just think you guys need to be really careful about saying you know things when you probably don't, because no one knows them. I think you can say the evidence suggests, I think you can say we're hopeful, all of those things, but when you base decisions on positions that you don't know, it creates basically a foundation of nothingness that just dissolves. And you're going to be way better off being really honest and transparent about what you actually know and what you're doing to get where you want to get. So that said, I would just ask the board to ask a few questions of staff and really dig into a couple different areas. One, what do they think in terms of transmission, but not know? Two, you guys have talked a lot about the idea of planning criteria for reevaluation, and I heard the superintendent say today it's really hard to put exact guidelines around that, right? So I think you can start to put soft guidelines around it. Okay, do we need to worry first and foremost about a return to in-person learning for middle school and high school as our top priority? Or do we need to have a plan for if things aren't going in our community the way we want them to, what a return to remote learning looks like for elementary school? So make really clear sort of decisions and guidelines for those involved in the process so they can walk through that and do them in a priority that makes sense. The other thing that I'd ask you to inquire about staff about is policies that are out there. So, one of the things that I read in the Return to Learning plan is a strong encouragement that people who are sick or present symptoms are not coming to school, right? So how do you incentivize that? Well, with kids, are they going to be penalized if they're not doing the schoolwork? How do you make sure that they're not penalized? With staff, are they penalized by having to take PTO if they have COVID that they most likely sort of could have come as a result of them being in person in the school environment? What about new teachers? If they want to, if for example, they were to have COVID symptoms 2 days into the semester and they don't have PTO, what do? I think you guys would be really well informed if you start to walk through those sorts of things and have specific ideas and plans around those. How are you going to ensure that HIPAA rights are protected for those that are involved? Making sure that the name of whoever is reporting symptoms isn't getting out there. How are you protecting those sorts of things? How many accommodations have been requested by staff? Do you have a sense of what that looks like? Do you have a sense of how those accommodations are being met or not being met? What really struck me tonight was a statement by Principal Bastian that the safety and wellness district-wide plan is essential. And I think to the extent you can make that as robust as possible, you're going to be better informed when situations that you don't A, want to have come in front of you, or B, don't expect to have come in front of you, just simply happen, right? Like in the last few months, we've had a pandemic. We now can't go outside because there's smoke everywhere. I mean, there are just going to be things that you cannot plan for. So to the extent you can create processes, you're going to be better off when those happen. And that's what I would really leave with you and encourage you to look strongly at today.
Thank you, Laura. Lots of good points. Let's see here. Next on the list is Dio Slong. Corey McFadden. Tim Andrew Latus. Leslie Bixel.
Hi.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi. So my name is Leslie Bixel. As well as being a parent to an incoming kindergartner, I'm also the assistant director at the Early Learning Center working in childcare. So first of all, I just want to say thank you guys so much for having such a push on social emotional development. During this time, as an early childhood educator, I understand how important that is, and I really thank you guys for pushing that too. One of my questions is, as an administrator in an early childhood program, I'm seeing the stress of families as they either have new children about to enter the school district or they have older children in the school district, and how they are possibly going to be working full-time jobs, watching their children and educating them. So, you know, my comment is, I just wondering if you guys have thought about that, how you can help support families as, you know, if they're single parents, two parents working full-time, if they want to continue to be able to provide for their family, they can't leave their jobs. Are there going to be camps available, after school programs? So I just kind of wanted to know what everyone's thoughts were on that, if you guys had thought about situations where parents can't possibly provide the education at home for their children.
It's a tough one, and it is absolutely a consideration. And, you know, as we can get more in-person learning, you know, the more that we can help out with that. But it's certainly something that we are aware of and absolutely understand that that's a big issue for lots of our families. Any other thoughts, Leslie?
That's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, Catherine Letts.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I am the parent of an incoming 5th grader and incoming 2nd grader. And I wanted to read a letter that you probably received in your packets. But this is a letter signed by a few dozen parents about parent concerns about the back to school plan. And I was also behind the, one of the parents behind the letter that we wrote a couple weeks ago. And I just want to say up front that the reason for doing this is completely just to have, we just wanted a place for parents to be able to address, you know, some of the more common concerns we're hearing, to be able to sign on, to have sort of a synthesized form of getting those concerns into the public discussion. And so with that, I'm more of a writer than a speaker, so I'll just go ahead and read. This was addressed to Superintendent Baugh and the school board members. We are writing to ensure that parents' concerns are heard about the Aspen School District's new plan for return to learning this school year. We understand that these are unprecedented times and there's no playbook for the situation we find ourselves in. So we applaud the tremendous efforts of administration, staff, various task forces, and all the other volunteers to craft a plan, and we have every respect for the complexity of the situation and how difficult it is to please everyone. However, as parents, we have concerns that we feel have either not been addressed or maybe they just haven't been communicated yet. And I think this is important because obviously some of these things were discussed tonight, and probably a lot of these things are discussed at the task force levels, but these are the kinds of conversations that parents are having on the sidewalk, on text, in the grocery store, and these are some of the things that we just haven't really heard spoken about to date. So we know also that there's constantly changing circumstances, and there's just a sheer volume of detail to be ironed out, but we just want to make sure those perspectives are being considered, and they fall in three major buckets, and the first is education. So keeping in mind that the health of students, teachers, and other district employees is top priority. We are concerned that the hybrid model won't provide an adequate education for elementary school students. We all have a memory of remote learning in the spring, and especially for parents of younger children, I don't think a lot of people thought it was very effective. And we heard in the Back to Learning plan that 3 days per week this fall are going to be a mix of screen time and academic packets created by the teachers. So that doesn't sound that much better than what was presented in the spring, especially if it sounds like most of that is asynchronous learning. So in that light, what are the expectations for accountability? What happens if it becomes clear that kids are not learning adequately at home, or they're falling through the cracks? So for all three schools, we would like to suggest that responsibility for these potential outcomes not rest solely on the students and their caregivers, but that administration and staff have a plan for kids who are slipping through the cracks. This might include kids with learning plans, but it might also include kids that just can't learn online. So some thought, has there been some thought given to free tutoring or supervised learning pods for the days when kids are distance learning, or adding more days at the end of the school year, having shorter holidays, that kind of thing? In the bucket of health concerns, the hybrid plan being presented for the elementary school is being presented as the best option to ensure the health and safety of students and staff. And it's also been said that the district is meeting or exceeding government guidelines and implementing it. We would like to hear more from the medical experts that worked with the original plan that the district created, which included much more in-person learning. We'd like to hear if the medical experts that were consulted initially also agree that this is the best plan, considering not only health and safety pertaining to COVID, but also overall health, which includes mental health and social and emotional well-being. I think this was discussed enough, but we'd also like clearer direction on the milestones and when more or less in-person learning is going to be evaluated and then triggered. And we also think that 2 weeks to implement the next phase is especially a more, well, either way, 2 weeks is following 2 weeks of positive metrics. That seems excessive. And finally, the impact on families. And I think this has been addressed somewhat, but here it is. I mean, perhaps the biggest concern we're hearing from parents is the plan's impact on families. The onus put on parents of elementary school students, as well as some middle and high school students, cannot be ignored. Those of us with younger children will need to become teachers, or at least skilled chaperones 3 days per week. Many parents simply can't do it and will turn to learning pods, other caregivers, or bringing their kids to work. That increases exposure and risk on the days that students are not in school. Add to this complicating factors such as work obligations, lost income, and split parenting households, and the potential financial and psychological toll on working families could be huge. If there was some relief for struggling kids and parents, like the childcare that's being offered to teachers, it would really go a long way. And I think the difference is between the spring period when when everybody was at home, the entire economy was shut down. That's quite different than this fall, when there are many more parents and caregivers that are going to work and are just have no idea what they're going to do with their kids, or looking at do they have to quit their jobs, that kind of thing. Again, this is not something that obviously teachers need to really be concerning themselves with, but as a whole, if we could have some more robust discussion around that, that would be great. So in conclusion, we believe that education is and should be treated as an essential service. It's not a luxury, it's not optional. Schools, as everyone knows, serve far more purposes than academic ones. And probably the key point is that inequities widen when kids are not in school and the longer that kids are not in school. We know that this is going to separate out the more privileged families from the less privileged families. So we know that going back to school is not without risk. There is some level of risk in all our daily activities these days. There are, essential workers, and there are people risking their health every day now. And so we must, as a school district and community, acknowledge and accept responsibility for not only the health risks posed by the novel coronavirus, but the very real other risks spelled out in this letter. So in closing, we just want to encourage the administration, staff, school board, and volunteers, task forces to work towards getting more kids back in the classroom more often as soon as the metrics permit, and as soon as possible.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
very much.
Thank you, Catherine.
And all the parents who supported that and signed that letter as well.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to go back. If there's any person who had signed up for public comment and wasn't able to speak when I called your name, this is your chance. All right, I think we'll move on to through our agenda, and it's already 10 after 8, so we're going to try to go through some of these quickly. I know we want to spend some time with AEA update, which is our next agenda item. So, Kay, are you available?
I am, and I have the best news of the evening. This is not going to take 30 minutes. Hold on to your seats, folks. Here we go. All right, so first of all, I want to give a big thank you on getting someone up to check out the HVAC. Wish it could have happened a month ago when we asked, but just so glad they're on their way, because that is really going to help staff really know and evaluate around the HVAC system with a lot of the different things. So thank you on that. We're excited about those outdoor learning spaces, but just like we got a plan for rainy days, now we got a plan for smoky days. And just please, in your hearts, think of those of us who live down valley and are really in the smoke right now. And just know we do have some staff who has been evacuated and others who are watching to see if they are going to have to go. So please keep us in the back of your minds and send some rain, please. All right. So just so you know, about half of our staff is still not comfortable coming back in person. And I think a great explanation goes at the end of the plan that the school district shared with you is a great list of resources. And on that resource list, if you go through, there was a really interesting, I just clicked through it right before the meeting, so I understand if you haven't had time yet. There was a really interesting section on, it was called the Pickens County White Paper. And what it had 22 different articles researched and embedded in the article around the new research that they're finding out about children and the spread of COVID. Because if you have been keeping up on the latest, there has been a 90% increase in kids testing positive for COVID between July 9th and August 6th. Let's think about what happened during that time. Outdoor camps started up, groups started getting together, and a few schools opened up. I know that 22 countries opened up successfully, but I'm wondering if Israel was considered one of those successful openings, because a month later, it wasn't so successful. And so we really need to look at those long-term things. Not only do we have something new coming, it is awesome we are going down on the meter. Let's keep it going down, keep it going down, keep it going down. But no, starting September 26th, we're going to start to have 300 to 400 people coming to campus every day. That's a huge thing when it comes to science. We know when we conduct a scientific experiment, which we are, that you can only have one variable. So our first variable is bringing back those small groups. You got to give us time to make sure that we did that okay. Because personally, I don't want to close down like Israel. I don't want to close down like the other school that was only open for 4 hours because somebody tested COVID. I want us to plan it and do it right so we can stay open, so we can continually keep opening. But we can't do that unless we start slow and we watch that meter go. So we may really start looking at that meter when kids start walking through the door, because that is our biggest variable. We have taken from going from 0 to 400 people. That's a big jump. And we've got to make sure that we can do that successfully and keep our staff safe and our kids safe and the community safe. And that's what's great was in the dialogue that's been going on between Picken County Health and the school district and the staff has really been successful these last 2 weeks. Look how far we came. But as you can tell, we still have a long ways to go. And just because the plan looks this way this week, who knows? We're going to get started going and we're going to get feedback from parents. We're going to get feedback from staff. We're going to get feedback from the community, and we're going to keep changing it and tweaking it to make it be the best thing that we can. We're Aspen. We have ideas festivals. We got this. We just got to stop and take a breath. And even though we want to run that marathon, we got to start the training a little slow. So looking at my notes, making sure I think I have covered anything. I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to all the parents who have sent feedback and things to AEA. Really appreciate it. Keep it coming. You can find my email in the school district, K. Erickson, email me. And I also want to thank the staff for really reaching out. They've done a great job and we're really in this all together, guys. So let's all take breaths. I guess my biggest thing for parents is because, yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging for me as a kindergarten teacher to be teaching in person and then have 3 days of my kids online and trying to keep those guys going and successful and supporting parents. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared. I feel like my first year. So the big thing is I got to take a breath. But parents, please talk with your child. Set up a plan. How are they going to contact the teacher? Not all kids feel comfortable letting the teacher know that they're not feeling okay or that the assignment's too tough. So develop a system of how you're going to communicate those things. How are you going to do that with your child to make sure that they've got the right setup in their space, in their room? Like, these are the little pre-planning steps. And I don't know about you, but I've been wearing my mask all day around my house, getting ready so I can follow those 5 parameters. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your work on the task force and bringing all the voices to the room. Really appreciate all the work bringing people together. And I think just as we keep going and keep listening to all of our feedback, we'll just keep getting a better and better plan. So really appreciate it.
But please check out those resources because they're great. They've got all the CDC really quick links so you don't have to spend all that time searching. They're really good.
And as I suggested earlier, I think we need a place on our website where we can put those and everyone can access them easily. So we'll get that in place, hopefully. All right, here we are. I think we need to kind of assess how much time we would like to spend on any of these other agenda items. I know we have some things that we need to action items that we need to address. But Darren and Dave, do you feel like we have more for an admin update or a superintendent update?
Just very briefly, Susan, today was the first day of new teacher orientation, and I think that's important to recognize that mile marker.
Yep.
Mr. Mulberry did a phenomenal job organizing it, and tomorrow's day 2. Our new teachers have the option of attending remotely or in person, but Theron did a fantastic job on that. The only other thing from the superintendent's perspective is the data from the family survey is in the supporting documents there. If anybody wants to see, what our families are thinking about transportation, about attending, that sort of thing. Theron, anything from your perspective?
No, I think that's a really good, it was great having a chance to meet with all the staff members this morning. You have just a great crop of new staff members, not just teachers and have support personnel, and we have new custodial staff. We have a bunch of people coming on board, and we're excited to have them be a part of this family. So it's going to be great to have them there. And it was our first foray into doing it as a blended model, so it can happen.
Nice, great. That's important. All right, thank you, guys. Financial update. Linda, can you give us a 2-second financial update?
Yes, I can do 2 seconds. It's just if anybody can understand when I get talking that fast. I do, because I really do want to leave some time. We need to make sure we have our bond update, that we have people on the line to give us an update on that. Yep. I just wanted to give you all a big kind of heads up that we're moving along on our financials for the end of the year. And I think that we're about 3 weeks out for having numbers, unaudited numbers for you all. And I'd like to schedule the auditors to come in the first week in October to come and start their field work. So, and it should take them about 2 to 3 weeks of time. So look for the end of October to have at beginning of November an audited financial CAFR, which is very good news. I feel like that was a big accomplishment over this next year to get that done. And then I also gave an update, a written one, on some preliminary numbers for ending fund balance and cash at the end of the year. Just so you get a heads up on that. Our ending fund balance, we really, when March hit, we shut things down on spending and revamping. So the good news is I do think we're going to come up with about a $2 million ending fund balance in cap reserve. So if we were to decide to go forward with the bipolar ionization type thing, this could be the money we could use for that to move that into this next year. We do have 3 meetings that are going to start scheduling over the next couple weeks. One with the Aspen Public Education Fund. We'll give them, and it will just be a copy of what was in the adopted budget of how we said we were going to spend the resources that they could provide for us. And also the Aspen Educational Foundation. We'll give them a written document of our budget, basically, of what we would use their funding for. And I'd like to do the same with Snowmass Village. This is our first kind of real official year with them. So we'll need to schedule a meeting here in the next couple weeks with that foundation also. Talked about the end of the year. The other thing that I would like to pursue going forward, if you all would like me to, is it has come to my attention that we have a unit. We currently own 1 unit in a duplex. The second unit of that could be coming available for sale. The owner of that unit has approached Theron and myself, and we were going to, if you would like, I would like to pursue like maybe financing options, maybe get Jorge out there to look at it, see if he sees any obvious structural damage or any things on it. And if you would like, I'd like to pursue that if possible.
I think that sounds like a good idea. More information about that would be awesome.
Okay. And we'll bring you more information as it becomes available.
Great.
So that was my quick auctioneer talk there. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. If anyone has questions for Linda, please email her.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Mm-hmm. All right, board members, can we move on?
Yes.
All right. Also, our board retreat. I feel like that's a another time when we can spend some time approving the work we did in the retreat and then talking about next steps. So,
I think we had already indicated the next steps were sometime in September, so.
so we can do that
we'll wait
later.
Until it's that time.
All right, so we are at our election and bond update. I know that Gilbert and Carrie are hanging on here.
Poor Gilbert.
Bless their hearts. I don't know if Dwayne, do you want to kind of?
You want Dave, maybe to Dave and or Linda? That's fine. They can start it. I can throw anything if they want.
I could take the lead on it here. I'd really like to turn it over to Gilbert and Carrie if they're on here in the next just minute. I just want to say we've been working on some issues with ballot language questions. We should get that resolved in the next day or so. It's a word count issue and what it needs to say. Looks like we could possibly need a special meeting before our next board meeting to adopt that language. So look for that to be coming. And with that, I see Carrie on my screen. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Carrie, all right?
Sure. I think the thing I want to emphasize is that we don't have new information to present, but rather the information that was in the board packet at the last board meeting that Gilbert and I and the team prepared for the board to review would still be the most current information. So I guess with that, Dwayne, I kind of want to shift it back to you and Susan to see what types of questions there might be that we can offer assistance about, since it is late into the evening for everyone here.
Yeah, Kari and Gilbert have been obviously essential in the strategic planning for all of our facilities updated, as well as obviously the creative energy and the thought around adding teacher housing and also thinking about how to reposition for the next 25 to 50 years. They have also been able to help our consultants develop the content, the information, the detail, and the kind of the, if you will, the concept of the operation that we intend to deploy based on a successful bond election approval. So they've been really essential there, and they're going to be running with us, through that bond election, and obviously helping to guide execution of a lot of the work. And they will help to further develop individual team members for that effort. So right here, right now, they're most helpful in providing all of the detailed study and work that we have completed together to help to inform the community going into the bond election. So bravo on that, and I appreciate, we all do, we speak for the board and the community, all of your sustained leadership and the energy that you're going to bring forward to us as we get this bond election approved. And to Linda's point, Linda, we have a couple of deadlines, right? August 25 is both an IGA deadline, but also I think, a Board of Education resolution approving the ballot language.
That's right.
Which obviously needs to hinge on that ballot language word count issue that you're talking about. We'll get that resolved this week, but then the board needs to have a special to take action on that resolution, correct?
That is correct. And the other piece of this we're holding just a little bit out on is our survey stuff that went out. We kind of like to have a good result of that before we move forward on this question, prioritizing the bullet points within the question itself. We feel like we've got a good list and a good priority, but it'd just be nice to have the survey results back.
Right. So Linda's referring to the Paul Hanley crafted and distributed survey to the community, to everyone in the district, together with the fact sheet that we assembled together with Kari and Gilbert. And so Paul is receiving those survey results as we speak. And this is the way.
Eliza's got some of them. She's got to.
Perfect.
She's got to.
So do we have
a
any data on the subscription
Not
and
yet.
participation rate yet? No. Okay. So we'll process through that.
Are they still coming in, or do we have postal service delays?
I'm sure so. We don't have a Dropbox either.
Well, maybe we should give it, I mean, if we have time to give it an extra day or two
Oh, yeah, of
based
course.
on the
Oh,
post
yeah.
office delays, I
It
think we
will.
probably should.
Right,
We
right.
could also encourage some online participation.
And we
We wanted to
developed
send
that.
an
We
email out.
Right, Eliza, that was also developed
was
as
a-
a pathway
I
for
saw
people.
that it was an option, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and we put a couple links on our website. So we have one on the bond side, and then I also put it in the financial transparency to get them over to the bond side.
Okay.
So I think we have some good places for people to go if they can't seem to find the survey, or they've lost it, or whatever.
Okay.
Got it.
But, sorry.
Yeah.
Email via online went out through the school district? I didn't see it.
No,
No.
they mailed a
Okay. Yeah,
survey.
so maybe
Yeah, but
we
on
could
the
do-
survey, there was also a place where you could go online if you wanted to take it online.
But maybe an all district blast would help
Yeah.
us get some online participation with.
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a survey, so my hunch is the answer is yes, but Paul and Tom Way, you guys just ask that question tomorrow. Throw up an email. They're actually responding to the email right now. That's a great question. My strong hunch is that it will not interfere with bond statute legislation, right, on this thing.
If we can mail something, it would seem like we could
Right.
email, right?
I mean, she's just talking about can the survey itself on behalf of the bond be published directly from the district? Does it have to come out? We took it from an outside resource,
I
which
got
was the cautious and conservative
Oh, I
pathway
get-
and the advised pathway.
Okay, I didn't understand.
So Eliza, ask that question. That's perfect. Good intuition there.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I guess Linda, and as soon as we kind of have a good time frame where we'll know the bond results, and before we need to approve, we should schedule that meeting. So I'll just leave that up to you to figure out what that perfect time is.
This week, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll coordinate it with Eliza to make sure we can get on everybody's schedule. We'll schedule a Zoom meeting similar to this,
Yeah.
and get public notice out.
The
Great.
FAQ says August 25 is the deadline for the approved reso to be published back to PITCO. So we're probably, right? Yeah. As well as the IGA.
Yep.
So my hunch is that we're going to have at the latest a special meeting a week from today.
Yep.
At the latest.
Yeah.
We could even do it Friday if you wanted to. 'Cause
Does the deadline, the IGA get signed by both the city and us?
Yeah.
So do we need
It's a
to allow
county.
some time
Is it the county?
for the county?
It is just the county. I got clarification on that.
So do
because
we
I-
allow time for that deadline, or they need to receive our signed copy?
I think it's the latter.
You've already got the IGA, right? Yeah.
We sign it and present by a
Yeah.
deadline.
Yeah.
We sign and present by a deadline.
Okay, not approved.
10-4.
Just checking.
Okay.
Good.
Kari, any other thoughts or any questions from anyone?
I
Thank you
think, Susan, in response to your question, the brief statement I would make is just to recap what Dwayne shared, I think, in the last board meeting, which was the general organization of the work that has come out of the community efforts, as well as guidance from the district, landing at 3 major categories or buckets for the improvements. 1 focused on existing facility improvements, 2 focused on the all-important employee housing for the district, and then 3 focused on priorities that have come up from the community and staff of the district through the facility master planning process. So those 3 buckets have really kind of guided the process and the cost estimating, and ultimately that community survey will be important for figuring out just how the bond allocation gets divided up into those categories.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So now we are on to our action items. GP8E, we really don't have anything here except for the time of our next regular board meeting. If we have that special board meeting, we can actually figure out the timing then and do this then. So I think we should move on. Required mass zone. This is we need to approve this resolution or not. establishing a face covering zone on school property. Does anyone have questions or comments about the resolution? All right, could I, do we have, should we go through all three of these and approve them all at once, or?
Dwayne did that last meeting. He approved consent and action items all at once.
Yeah, Jonathan pushed it, yeah.
All right, well, I mean, that's gonna be fine if we think we're gonna vote the same way on all of them, but, which may be the case. Let's go ahead and see if there's any questions or comments on the bipolar ionization update, and that's involved some repair on some ventilation units, correct? Is it just repair?
The $50,000 in emergency fund. And that's out of, I think Liz, hopefully Linda's still there. That's part of what she was saying we have funding for the project as well. Okay.
And my only other question about that is that just sort of a stopgap, and then we're going to really want to just buy whole new units later, or where is that in the whole scheme of long term?
That is a very good question.
That's a really good question, Susan, that we don't have a very good answer for. We do know that Aspen Elementary School has had a long history of questionable air quality. And this is a step to really just get the air moving and get the fresh air from the outside in.
Yep.
There's a stopgap spending thing that I heartily recommend, just because we want to, provide safe air for our staff. And that's imperative.
Yep.
Downstream, this could well be a total remove and put in, and ideally even standardize across the 3 schools.
Yeah.
Air handling.
Well, it's important to get good air in there now. So I think
That's a not to exceed kind of threshold. And
okay.
We don't know that we will need that. Like we said earlier, we're having trouble getting people out from Vail for some reason, to check out our units.
That's too bad.
We did reach out to some competitors and got a name of a new company and shared that with Mr. Calderon late this afternoon.
Okay.
So this is air quality is a real high priority right now.
I'm sure so. I appreciate your hard work on it and trying to get that going quickly. Okay, transportation. We have a agenda item to approve the installment of rods and curtains into the buses for driver safety. So I believe someone told me that it was for when kids are getting onto the bus, so that the driver can protect themselves as everybody's getting on and off.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
That is correct.
$420 for the total package.
Go for it. I love that.
I assume we're approving the change to the rule, not the $420, right?
Yeah. We were advised that we needed board approval because we're kind of modifying a bus.
Yeah. Yep.
And I assume we have no insurance issues with this kind of modification, or any liability issues. I mean, they're clear curtains. I can't imagine we do, but I feel like
I think we're good, Katie. And like we said, the curtain, it's a clear curtain. It's kind of only closed when kids are coming on, loading from the back of the bus forward. Reagan has done a lot of research on this.
Awesome. All right, we have a calendar update. The proposed changes are, as of August 31st, 5 through 12th grade remote start, September 8th, K through 4 A/B start, June 9th end date for 7th through 11th grade compared to June 10th due to a 9-month contract conflict. Any questions about the calendar changes?
I just want to point out, Marty White just let me know that looks like we were previously talking about the start date changing from 8/20 to 8/19. I have a note on there about that. That will not be the case. That was 8/19 and not 8/20. So that will be removed.
Okay.
and it's just the comment on the bottom left.
All right,
So with that change.
okay.
I have a question about instructional days for the elementary school, making sure that we're good on that, given that the kids are starting, 2 weeks later. Is there any modification happen to make sure that they get enough instructional time? And do the days that they're at home with paper packets count?
Yeah, the latter questions, yes.
So there's a bunch of work that we're doing right now just to figure out what counts and what doesn't around that. We have to ask for the right accommodation for that. There's a lot of leniency, obviously, during COVID to get that done. And it's all dependent on the health of the county you're in. And so
That's
we have some
interesting.
work to do around that. Stephanie Durham sent me a nice email today, and we'll get that sorted out, and I'll have a better answer to that next meeting.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve items 7.2, required mask zone, 7.3, the bipolar organization not to exceed, 7.4, small transportation rules adjustment together with the funding stream, and 7.5, the amended 2020-2021 calendar update as published.
I second that motion.
Roll call, Katie Frisch,
Aye.
Jonathan Mitchell,
Aye.
Susan Earl,
Aye.
Wayne Romero,
Aye.
and Susan Smith.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve item number 8, consent action items as presented this evening to the board.
Just one thing before I comment on that, I did make a late change to the for the draft meeting minutes. that are
Oh,
in
gotcha.
there.
Which one?
Which one?
The special meeting. So I just want to make sure that I understood what I put in there is what we all understood. And what it is in the next steps, it says the AMS math team and administration will get back to the board and the community about advanced math to address their concerns prior to moving forward with the proposed changes. That was my understanding of what our conclusion was with that. So I just want to make sure we're aligned.
That's internally consistent with what we've been
Yes.
speaking about as early as beginning of second semester last year.
So where are we on that then?
Well, we're voting on the minutes right now, so.
Well, no, he has to stop to discuss them, actually.
Well, no, this is,
Well, I was
this is just whether this was the actual minutes.
that change had been made and that's what they're approving. So maybe if we
Okay.
approve them, then we could ask. Dave.
Yeah, that'll be a future agenda item, I think, that we need to talk about.
Okay. All right. I have a comment to make then.
Yeah.
I'd like to put that on our next special meeting. And not
Okay.
wait.
And Jonathan, those changes were made in the one that he's presented.
Yeah, it's the one that's on there. I just wanted to, since it was last minute, I wanted to make sure everybody knew. All right. So I second Dwayne's motion.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Jonathan Mitchell,
Aye.
Susan Earl,
Aye.
Wayne Romero,
Aye.
and Susan Smith.
Aye.
Well done.
Okay, future meeting items. I think that this place should be things that will not be on our agenda otherwise. So many of these things, the financial update and the reopening plans and maintenance updates are all things that we will
Do anyway.
have on our agenda anyway. And I think these notes are great, and I think they should go on the agenda item when we have that on our agenda. I think when we have something that's special, like the math, that we want to come back and address it, those are the type things that we need to put in the special, in this future meeting topics. So Katie, I think you would like to discuss.
Yeah, I would, because I've heard we've had a couple of emails from parents today regarding movement forward with the changes to the math program have been announced and articulated to parents.
Yeah, so.
And not to us.
So let's, what's the best way for us to be updated on that, Dave and Theron, and to move forward with a conversation of some sort?
Well, we can, if we're having a special board meeting next Friday or Monday, we can certainly have 2 items. We just have to publish it, right? We could do the thing, and we could do middle school math update.
Okay.
And we can try to get better answers for you than we have right now. I know Theron was working on it a bit this afternoon, but been spread. But anyway,
Yeah.
do you have, does that make sense to you, Theron?
Yeah, and I think it's something to do before all the schedules are finalized for the middle schoolers, because it could change things for the administration and how they're doing the work.
Yeah, we already got an email with some feedback about it. So just would love to have an update. So that sounds like a good plan. We'll work on that for our special meeting. And then if anybody else has any really pressing future agenda items that would not normally be on our schedule, you can probably just email Eliza, and then we'll get those on, unless you just want to throw it out there right now. But I think that should be a process rather than having this long list of things that are kind of cumbersome.
Just the one thing that at least it would be good to track is, since I'm trying to change the minutes to where it's basically what got discussed and not a lot of Susan said this and Jonathan said no. This is what was discussed. If you want to listen to what everybody said, there's a recording online.
Right. Yep.
These were the motions that were made, and then action items.
Yep.
So it's just, how do we keep track of the action items and they're getting done?
Well, and I
Now
think,
maybe we can have Dave just kind of update us on that kind of stuff.
well, and there's action items that are ours, but there's also action items that are, Dave and Theron's. And so I think to put it on our agenda, if it's something that, Theron needs to do, doesn't really make sense. So
yeah, there's some kind of list somewhere
Yep.
that says done.
And I think that if we have these
I agree. I need
things
to memory.
on each agenda item, I think that's important. So we want to keep up with the comments and the action items, and who's responsible. I think that's important too.
Well, perhaps maybe Eliza could help us with this, and anything that turns out as an action item on the minutes gets put on the next board meeting agenda, or until it gets moved.
Yep.
If it needs to be more time.
Yep.
It just automatically goes into the next agenda as an item to discuss.
Unless we can identify it that it will automatically be discussed in the next financial update or whatever it is. But yeah, if it needs to be something additional, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, great. All right. Debrief. Dwayne.
Meeting was well prepared. The board, I believe, in our role of serving as kind of advocates for the community and governance for the district, I think we demonstrated some good coordination across the board. We were respectful and very mindful of ensuring many voices participating. There was a lot of preparation going into this meeting. A lot from district leadership, and you heard a lot of work from teachers. Those were wildly important, and I think we honor that and we continue to model that and respect it, which I think does translate throughout the district. It gives confidence and it gives trust and builds our relationship with members of the district, as well as being good role models for the community. And so that's in a large way consistent with what we were talking about in our retreat, and just behaving better as a board and trying to get to the issues as cleanly and as respectful as possible, but also trying to facilitate the problem solving that makes this district great. So I think tonight, 3 hours and 47 minutes, but still a great body of 3 hours and 47 minutes of meaningful work.
Yeah. And I would just say I am impressed and thankful for all the just collaboration that has happened in 2 weeks. It's really impressive. And so I just want to keep listening and keep, adjusting and keep working together. So appreciated. Absolutely. Awesome.
Thanks to everyone who served on those committees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate all the hard work, and
Lots of hard work.
let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
All the thoughtful comments and everything.
Okay. It is 8:48, and I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. How many do we have left? 36 and dropping.
Quickly.